Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer, a 40k podcast where we like to talk about 40k as we always do, I suppose. Joining me, we got Tech Priest Gerald. Welcome.
In nomine Imperator et Spiritus Machina. Amen.
Amen. Yo, you got a new hood and robe going on, which I really like.
I'm
Really
officially
going all
official
in.
now.
Yeah.
Totally not a heretic. Toasty.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next episode. I'm like, Gerald, is that a bionic arm? Where the fuck did you get that thing? As you slowly just literally turn yourself into a Tech Priest one item at a time.
One limit at a time. Omnisci
One item at a
provides.
time. And we also got joining us, Nick. Welcome.
Hey, pleasure as always, all you grim dark lovers out there. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah. Always a pleasure to have you on. Man, it's so cool how many different people I've been able to meet through Lorehammer and just develop fun little friendships and stuff. Yeah, it's funny to think me and you, Nick, we haven't really known each other for too long, but I feel like I've seen your kids with your permission, of course, and
Oh yeah,
slowly developing a fun little friendship. So,
do you have are you tapping into the secret webcams in my house or something?
Yeah, your baby monitor.
No, but I mean,
grim dark 40k tales every night.
Yeah, I'm sure my daughter loves that. But I mean, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we do, so we're always chatting.
Yeah, always a good time. Well, today's episode, before we get into it, it's going to be about Szarekh, the Silent King. And I already know that each one of us is probably going to say his name in a different way, and I will say it a different time every time. So that'll be nice to try to keep track of. At one point, we did a Satan counter of how do we say it so many different ways. So we can get two counters going. We can get the Szarekh and the Satan counter going.
Yeah, we'll throw up a thing in a Discord afterwards. If you can count how many different times we say it, maybe we'll give you a prize. Like counting jelly beans in a jar or something.
Ooh, glorious.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get to that episode, let's just talk some housekeeping. If you like Lorehammer merchandise, I got Lorehammer merchandise. Go to Redbubble or just go into the episode description below. There's links there. You can go to the link tree. It'll take you to the merchandise site and all that kind of stuff. We sell t-shirts. We sell socks. We sell iPhone cases. And we also sell a duvet, a bedsheet. So if you feel like you want me to hold you close at night, well, that I think for the moment is the closest I can do for you unless you join the Patreon.
Well, speaking of joining the Patreon, you have, all kinds of perks like access to ad-free versions of the show for only $2.50 per month, and you get access to our video portions for only $5 per month. So, what are you waiting for? I always got to ask this every time. Why aren't you joining the Tithe? Are you a heretic?
Are you? Yeah, no, it's been cool. We've got a lot of new people joining up. Really appreciate it. What a heck of a deal, man. I was scouring through some other 40k Patreon podcasts or whatever. Yo, they all fucking suck. They all blow. Not only did they charge you for all the good episodes, you get it for fucking free. And if you just don't want to listen to ads, give me $2.50. It's perfect, man. And we're doing 3 episodes a week now because the Patreon's growing. I got a couple ad spots to help grow the show as well. So 3 episodes a week. That's 12 episodes a fucking month, man. That's a lot of content. So definitely go join up. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, lots of writing, absolutely. But the Patreon is really what helps us make those episodes. So every dollar donated is more content that we can bring to you guys. At the end of the show, it gives you access to a call-in guest, which I will always say is my favorite part. Love hearing from the members of the community. We ask a bunch of questions. You can end up on one of the episodes. Also, during the show, we have a live chat room where we will read your comments as we're going. We'll throw them up on our live stream. It's super awesome to hear from all you guys.
Yeah, I will read whatever comment you throw ahead of me. So what kind of wacky things can you get me to say? Dun, dun, dun. That's the new goal. To be fair, I won't be able to fully read it as is just because of my reading ability, but I'll fucking try. I'll try my best. All right. I think we're ready for this episode. Szarekh, the Silent King. We're doing a Necron episode. We're talking about the leader of the Triarch, the big bad of all the undead robots, Szarekh, the Silent King. What are you guys like? One sentence kind of teaser or first thought about Szarekh? Because he's kind of a new concept to some degree.
I am going to disagree with you, actually. I don't think he's a big bad. I mean, granted, he might have been at one point, but I think after his 60 million years out in the intergalactic void between galaxies, he's been trying to atone for his sins, everything he did to the Necrontyr, and coming back and, just the things he's trying to accomplish.
So
That's fair.
I'm gonna say he's a lot more tragic than we kind of give him credit for. Granted, he's probably a big bad to the Imperium's perspective because spooky, scary skeleton robots and all. But he kind of, we'll talk. We'll when we talk about it later. He kind of done. He made some goofs, and he's, as Nick has pointed out, he has since paid for that in these 60 million years. He's been quite awake. So
Yeah. Okay. There's some. You guys are Necron friendly. A bunch of Xenos lovers by the sound of it.
Well,
I'm
I
keeping
tell you
my
what,
eye on you guys.
everyone knows about the Emperor. Like, he is like one of the biggest guys in 40K. But I'd say Szarekh, the Silent King, he's probably in the top tier of like one of the most important like named characters. He's got the whole thing fighting the C'tans. He's the one that changed the Necrontyr into the Necron with the Deceiver. And just everything going on, like the war in heaven. He's one of the major parts of that.
Yeah.
Purge
Yeah.
here
And after
says
60 million.
there's nothing bad in Warhammer, just lesser degrees of the greater good. Inquisitor, this man
Just
right
Xenos
here.
lovers.
This man right here.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, well, let's dive into it here, shall we? Let's get a consensus here. How are we saying this dude's name?
I think it's Szarekh. Szarekh, the Silent King.
Szarekh.
Sorry.
So, pretty close.
Okay. Szarekh, the Silent King, was the last of the Triarch's rulers in the ancient Necrontyr Empire. Under his reign, the Necrontyr encountered the Satan and embraced biotransference, transforming into the undying soulless Necrons. The process stripped away the Necrontyr of their souls, a grim truth Szarekh only recognized after it was too late. Consumed by regret, he turned against the Satan, shattering them into shards and sealing them within Tesseract labyrinths, after the Old One's defeat in the War of Heaven. In the aftermath, Szarekh commanded the Necron dynasties to enter the Great Sleep, hibernating for 60 million years to recover from their losses. When they awoke, they would reclaim their former glory. Severing the control protocols over his subjects, Szarekh exiled himself into the intergalactic void, seeking new realms for his people to one day conquer. As the 41st millennium dawned, the great awakening of the Necrons began. Szarekh returned, his exile broken by the looming threat of the Tyranid Hive fleets and the rising powers of the Imperium and Chaos. These growing forces jeopardized the Necrons' quest to reclaim the galaxy and escape the curse of biotransference. Szarekh dreams of transferring Necron minds into organic vessels, freeing his people from their soulless existence. Yet the Silent King knows the Tyranids and Chaos must be stopped, or no species will remain to serve his purpose. Now he traverses the galaxy, rallying his people to unite against these existential threats. Yeah, so that's kind of the overview of him before we dive really into nitty-gritty details of it all. He was the dude that, made the deal with the Satan to take their crippled, plague-ridden, maybe radiated-ridden bodies and put them into the necrodermis. He was the guy who said, come on, just hop into these furnaces. It'll be fine. It'll be a glorious future for all of us, which, spoiler, it wasn't. They all got turned into soulless robots, which he ends up regretting for sure. And then, we mentioned the command protocols, which I think we talk a little bit more later, what those exactly are. He destroyed those, allowing just a little more autonomy from the Satan and from the soulless forms that they had taken place. Very interesting character. Like you guys were saying, maybe started out with the right intentions, did a bad thing, and has now been spending a long time trying to make up for it.
That seems to be the main thing with most of these stories in 40K in general. It's like folks are trying to do a good thing, they done goof, and now they're paying for it. No, sorry. Now the galaxy is paying for it.
Yeah, they can share that punishment together.
I mean, when it comes to it, who else wouldn't? I'm sure any of you guys would probably take that deal. You're in these mortal bodies. You've got cancer from all the radiation on your planet, and just your life is super short. You just get lost to this massive war against the great old ones, and someone comes along and it's like, "Hey, we'll make you immortal. We'll give you these fancy robot bodies. All you got to do is, transfer your essence into them." I mean,
Yeah.
I'd probably take them up on that, honestly.
Oh
And
shit! So you're getting the
especially-
brain chip when it comes out?
Ugh.
No, I'm going to be like the higher echelons of the Necron, so I still have some of my personality, not like the rank and file, just the normal civilian.
Good. Right. Yeah. Okay. You can just choose that. I'm happy that you think you can just choose that. It will make it a lot easier for them to push you into the soul furnaces for sure.
Cool. Yeah, from this point on, you can refer to me as Nicotep.
Let's see. I think we need to make the proper change in your StreamYard name here. So
Yeah, I'm on that. Edit name. How do you spell that? Nicotep. Nicotep. Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah. The biotransference. It's just one of those things that one of the craziest pictures in all of 40K. One of the most grimdark things. Where just imagine these massive cities of people across the galaxy. Like they had a huge empire at this point, and they had just vehicles going and rounding up citizens and dragging them into the furnace and making them line up and then pushing them in one by one. I imagine too, like if you had some type of like spectral biometer, ethereal eyesight, as they push the soul in, you can then see the soul literally escape out of the furnace and then get devoured by a Satan, and then out the bottom comes a soulless robot. It's so grim dark, and it doesn't matter if you're a woman or child. In fact, probably women and children first, they probably said. Very bleak.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even imagine. And most of the people that went, you're going to have those people that don't want to do it, but then you're also probably going to have some that are lining up, waiting to go. It's like the whole conveyor belt thing. You step on the conveyor belt, immortal, you go in, you come out as this big assembly line of just robots.
And just to twist the knife even further, there was a section mentioned, there's a discussion between Trazyn and Orican, and they've come to the realization that the Satan messed with or altered their memories of the biotransference, so they don't even know if like they either wanted to do this or didn't want to do it to begin with. So that's the crazy part.
Yeah. The other thing we were kind of mentioned in this little blurb was kind of Szarikh's motivation and Necron motivation as a whole. One of their things is they want to rule the galaxy, and they don't want to just own the galaxy. They want something to rule over. So, Szarek leaves for a hot minute, and he's going to other galaxies potentially, looking for places where there's actually people that he can actually rule over. And it's a common theme within the Necron where they have all this technology that they could just destroy everything in their path and take out everything. They have the celestial orrery that just, it can blink stars out of existence, but there's no fun in that. You don't then get to rule over people. And that's a big part of Necron kind of motivation for, even though they're soulless, they still want that. They still want to lord over people.
Yeah, isn't that one of his biggest things now? Is he almost has like internment camps where he takes people and kind of turns them into slaves. He doesn't want to outright destroy them. He wants to, have people working under him, even though they've got like these armies of scarab beetles and stuff that can build anything they dream of. Instead, you got these mortal people that you got to worry about feeding and watering. But
it's all about.
Damn, do they make some cool monuments?
Exactly, and it's all about just showcasing that Necron supremacy. So,
yeah. Purge says, "Can you have a persona without a soul?" I don't know. We'll have to ask some of the higher ups, the suits in Washington, about that one. That's a big question. What is a soul? Yeah. Grimaldus says, is there trains? Yeah, definitely. There's trains that lead people places, and I've been told never get on the train for sure.
Nope.
It never ends well.
Nope.
And that's why I would never work downtown in most cities, because you usually have to get on transit to get there. So fuck that.
Ugh.
Never get on the trains.
Nope. Don't. Even if they're free. So
Even if they're fucking free.
even if they're, especially if they're free. But so anyways, enough about the grim darkness as real life. Let's talk about Zarekh's history. So from the beginning, the Necrontyr dynasties were ruled by the Triarch, a council of 3 senior pharaohs. At its head stood the Silent King, who spoke only through the voices of his 2 counterparts. Though the title was hereditary, the short lives of the Necrontyr meant it often passed between royal dynasties. In the final days of the Necrontyr, this mantle rested upon Szarekh, the last Silent King. During Zarekh's reign, the godlike Satan first cast their shadow upon the Necrontyr. How this fateful encounter began is lost to history, shrouded in conflicting accounts. The archives of Solemnis, I can never figure out how to pronounce that name, but anyways, claim it stemmed from a stellar probe's discovery near a dying star. The Book of Mournful Night, hidden in the Black Library, suggests the Necrontyr's hatred for the Old Ones sang out, drawing the Satan like moths to a flame. However, contact occurred. The eldest dynasties were the first to fall under the Satan's influence. Some Necrontyr sought their favor, crafting living metal forms to house the star god's essence. The Satan, assuming shapes reminiscent of half-forgotten gods, cloaked their ambitions behind false servitude.
Yeah, one thing to note about the Necron is, or the Necrontyr at this point, was even back then they had crazy good technology. They had the ability to like take soul essence or however we want to describe that and somehow meld it with metal, which is super cool. One question I've often been asked too is like, well, if they have such like crazy technology, why weren't they able to deal with the radiation in their body better? But I kind of just think like, now keep in mind, I'm not a radiologist or whatever the fuck, but I feel like at some point you just get so corrupted, your genes get so affected and radiated that there is no going back, no matter the technology. It's like trying to recover something that is no longer, it's like that computer disk. We've mentioned this a couple times where, eventually parts get corrupted and blanked out, and there is no way to recover that. You can see that there was a chunk of stuff there, but you can't go back and recover it. No matter the technology, it's just kind of lost now. But yeah, the Necron had some very cool technology for sure.
I mean, you literally read my mind. I was thinking the exact same thing. And another, just to kind of go off of that a little bit, is why once they spread out through the galaxy, because they mostly got that radiation from the one planet that they were housed at. Why didn't it like get better as they went to different planets and expanded?
Yeah, once again, like now I'm not a geneticist, but I think like you just can't go back. They reach this certain point where their whole gene line has been affected. It doesn't matter if you go anywhere, it's inside them. It's a part of them now, and there's no recovering it, no matter the technology. They're just missing it.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing too, is that it kills them at random pretty much. Like you could live for however long, and then all of a sudden just one day you die from like space cancer.
Damn, space cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It's the second worst kind of cancer.
Before I get started back up, Purge kind of had a clarification for his question. The reason I ask is the Necrons, like the Silent King, have persona without a soul. Seems like a plot hole unless they're acting on some more basic or primal instinct and not on personal desires.
Yeah, like this soul is so interesting. We could talk about Sisters of Silence or just blanks in general. They have personas, they have characteristics about them, even though they really don't have a soul. They might even have an opposite of a soul, but they still have that. Like, we could talk about like real life, and do animals have souls? Do my chickens in the backyard have souls? What about my dogs? Either way, they both still have personalities, whether we think they have a soul or not, or whether their soul is as comparable as like, I feel like there's more of a soul in us than the chickens out back.
Right, right. And I mean, like your average Necron warrior, your standard rank and file infantryman, they're pretty much like mindless robots. They don't really have any sort of like emotion or persona, as you're saying. It seems like it's only those higher up people in like the Necron dynasties and stuff like that that actually have some semblance of their own motivations and emotions and just different ways of acting.
And
Yeah.
at the risk of making it sound like a cop out, but back to like they had the most advanced technology at the time, and the Satan kind of really brought out a lot more of that in them. It's they probably had a really good way of kind of how do I put this in? Because in like the Infinite and Divine, a lot of like Trajan's personality or like his thoughts and feelings is always described as like very specific type of code. So you could easily explain like a certain personality, especially with the AI that we have nowadays. Like you can garner like a certain personality from like specific types of specific lines of code. So
Yeah.
I would like to imagine like the Satan were able to kind of make a very powerful version of that. So that way the higher up Necrons could still elicit some kind of personality. And then the dregs just, they're mindless robots.
Yeah.
But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, like if you're looking at like brain scans and stuff, it's pretty wild, like how different portions of your brain will light up depending on what you're actually doing, So then you take that and you code that, and we ourselves aren't that far away from a lot of this stuff. But yeah,
So
machines with spirits.
the machine spirit, as one might say, for the Omnissiah. Okay. Among them came the deceiver, a treacherous entity veiled in guile, who presented himself to the silent king, claiming to be a harbinger for his kind. The deceiver spoke of a primeval war between the Satan and the Old Ones, a war the star gods had lost. Fearing retribution, they had hidden themselves, awaiting allies to exact vengeance. The deceiver promised the Necrontyr unity and the immortality they so desperately sought. These gifts he assured came without cost, mere tokens of gratitude for worthy allies. Whether his words held truth remains unknowable, even to the deceiver whose existence was so steeped in lies that the line between truth and falsehood had long since vanished. Szarekh, burdened by the ceaseless strife of his people, found himself swayed by the deceiver's promise. For long months he deliberated with the Triarch and his court. Only Orican, the court astrologer, voiced dissent. His prophecy warned of glory reborn, but at the cost of the Necrontyr's very soul. Yet Szarekh's desperation for unity overpowered caution, and Orican's words were dismissed. A year after the deceiver's arrival, the pact was sealed. Thus began the Necrontyr's irreversible transformation. With this decision, Szarekh cast off the first mantle of their existence and led his people into the second, the era of biotransference.
Don't they say that the best lies are ones that are built off of the truth?
Sure. Yeah, and then just slightly tweaked there, yeah, you're gonna live forever, but as soulless robots, he mumbles to himself under his breath.
It's like when they I don't know if you guys on the TV when they do the medical advertisements, and then at the end they'll say things like really, really fast. That's just his little contract to him.
Yeah.
Yep.
The deceiver has another name too. It's Mephetran. So MEPHET''RAN. Just so he wasn't approaching them with the deceiver name. That was kind of later added.
I mean, if you came up and named yourself as a deceiver, that's not going to give you a good first impression.
Yeah, they're like, well, no one could possibly deceive me and have a name like that. Who would be stupid enough to do that? I think we can trust him. He's probably just a funny guy trolling people. He's just fun.
It's just an ironic name.
Just an ironic name.
One of the things you mentioned, Gerald, is about Orican, about how he was the only one that voiced dissent. I think that's really funny because if I remember right, he was one of the few Necrontyr that could he not manipulate time, but he could almost see into the future a little bit.
Mhm.
And you think if you were some big king and you had someone in your court that could see partially into the future, you take his word a little bit more than maybe the rest of the guys out there.
Yep, because I think, Mark, you had mentioned in the relics and the curiosities episode, like Necrons have a lot of time manipulation related technology that you don't really see in the other factions as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of universe breaking technology that they like to limit themselves in using somehow. They have their own built-in kind of safeguards and stuff from just going over the top. But very cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what they're going to awaken as these tomb worlds start waking up. Well, the Catan revealed the immortality they offered. Great biofurnaces blazed as Necrontyr flesh was consumed and replaced with the undying bodies of living metal. At the biotransference sites, the Catan feasted upon the life force of the Necrontyr, growing unimaginably powerful as their hosts were remade. Zarekh's own transformation brought clarity and strength he had not known in decades. His machine body was free from the frailties of the organic life, his mind sharper than ever. Yet a deep emptiness gnawed at him, a void where his soul had been. He understood that the price of immortality, the Necrontyr were gone, replaced by the soulless Necrons. While the Necrons gained unity and immortality, these blessings came with a curse. Command protocols encoded within every Necron mind ensured Zarekh's total control. Initially, he welcomed this order, a reprieve from the chaos. But as time passed, the weight of his authority grew unbearable. Yet he dared not sever the protocols. Without them, his subjects might rise against him, consumed by the hatred of what they had become. Empowered by the life force of the Necrontyr, the Catan unleashed their full might upon the galaxy. Suns were extinguished, planets consumed, and entire star systems obliterated by black holes summoned by the star gods. The Necrons, united under Szarekh, waged war on the Old Ones and their allies, even breaching the webway to assail them in their strongholds. At last, the Old Ones fell, destroyed by the combined might of the Catan and the Necrons, along with the horrors of the Old Ones themselves had unleashed from the warp.
Yeah. This is another kind of strong theme with the Necron is their hatred. Whether it was hatred for their own body that drove them to the biotransference, you have to really kind of, I don't know, in my mind, hate yourself, or whether it was their hatred that made them make the pact with the Satan in the first place. Like there's that element of hatred that made them align with them against the old ones. And then after it's this hatred that he took control of his whole race, the Necron, and went and kind of purged the galaxy.
Yeah. Do you think that having a whole civilization of people that did everything you ever wanted, like your beck and call, it would just get boring after a while, don't you think? You need that like constructive criticism to help you get better.
Yeah, I think that's the only saving grace for for humans there is like, yeah, we might fight and stuff and argue and bicker, but also that's kind of the spice of life, you know. It's kind of, without it it'd be pretty boring, you know. You don't want to come to blows with anyone, but without it, if we all thought the same, if we all acted the same, it wouldn't be very fun, wouldn't be very interesting. It'd get boring.
It's
Yeah,
kind
we
of like
wouldn't
that
have.
very it's kind of like that very fine line between you want that struggle to improve, but you don't want to be in utter hell. But you also don't want to be so complacent, otherwise you let's just say murder fuck your way into birth in the chaos god. Or
We've all been there, we've all done that though.
Yeah, without that criticism, we wouldn't have fun James complaints to read.
Yeah, I need James back on the show so we can my inbox been flooded with James complaints. I'm like, I gotta wait for him to get back. They're not my complaints, I can't read them.
Sure. We'll have to change it to like Warhammer complaints for the time being until then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. He just had his second kid, so shout out to him. It went smooth, everyone's happy, so
Woo!
Congrats to him.
Congratulations.
Well, Szarekh, however, bided his time. He knew the Necrons alone could not stand against the Catan at their peak, nor could they fight the war in heaven without the Old One's defeat. Only when the Catan had exhausted themselves in victory did Szarekh strike. In their arrogance, the Catan did not anticipate rebellion. The Necrons harnessed the raw power of the cosmos, crafting god-killing hypercannons that even the Catan could not withstand. The battles to shatter the Star Gods were so cataclysmic that they fractured causality itself. In the aftermath, Szarekh ordered the knowledge of this dreadful weapon erased from the warrior's mind, fearing the ruin that might later bring. So I actually like that they wrote this. Games Workshop and the Black Library wrote this into it, that he erased the knowledge of the weapon. I feel like it's a really good way to describe why no one knows about it instead of just kind of leaving it up to mystery.
Yeah, it goes back into the Necron. They have this unlimited technological potential, but they really know how to kind of not use it. They really either will destroy it or they put their own safeguards in place to keep things from getting out of control. Yeah, what a crazy kind of thing. Like, we call the Satan like the star gods, and just like souls, we could get into a huge conversation like what the fuck actually is a god. But either way, to destroy these like beings that feast on the sun and shatter them into many fragments is very, very cool.
Yeah, it comes down to the question, how do you kill a god? I mean, these Catan are so powerful, and they had just been like supercharging, feasting on the souls of all the Necrontyr too.
Yeah. They've got a taste for Necrontyr souls now, as opposed to just solar energy.
Yeah, makes me wonder.
Yeah. Thus, the Necrons secured their freedom, but the price was eternal. Their souls lost, their empire in ruins, and the galaxy irreparably scarred. The Silent King bore the weight of triumph, won at unimaginable cost. The Satan, eternal star spawn, woven into the very fabric of reality, could not be destroyed entirely. Instead, they were shattered into countless shards, each fragment a dim echo of its former might. Szarekh, the Silent King, had foreseen this limitation and crafted his plans accordingly. Each Satan shard was bound within a tesseract labyrinth, imprisoned like a genie in a bottle. Though millions perished in the rebellion, including all the members of the Triarch save Szarekh himself, the Necrons achieved their goal, freedom from the false gods and the mystery of their destiny once more. And the mastery of their destiny once more.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, these Tesseract labyrinths that these Catan shards get imprisoned in, I mean, it's not like just a couple Catan shards either. It's thousands of them. And then the more powerful ones that are too strong to be contained inside of the Tesseract labyrinth actually get trapped into the Tesseract vaults and used as weapons by the Necron.
Yeah, I wonder how many Satan escaped this purge. Like the Necrontyr the Necron at this point were a galaxy-spanning empire, but the galaxy is huge, and there's no way that they found every last one of these on all the stars feasting. And I wonder if there's any still lurking out there.
Oh yeah, that'd be pretty cool. It's like the kind of the whole deal with the Imperium, how there's a million worlds out there, but there's still planets that they're coming across and discovering.
Yeah, it's almost like just another Imperium analogy, almost like the hunt for the STC of the Imperium, like the hunt for another Satan god. Like we know they could be out there and the power that they could bring us, and to find a fully intact Satan god, just imagine, as opposed to just these fragments that we've been wielding, these reality shaping gods. Just imagine if we could capture a full one.
Ooh, that's quite the task.
I'm going to give it to Belisarius Call, see what he can do with it, see if he can make us some new toys.
Yeah.
He probably could, as long as he's careful about his tech heresy.
I think he's beyond that, man. He can fuck with the Emperor's creation and not get accused of tech heresy and overthrown. I think he can do whatever the fuck he wants. I think his plot armor is thicker than a Stardew's plysteel plate.
Yeah, he made Mark's favorite faction in all of 40k, the Primaris.
Nothing gives me a hate boner as much as Primaris, I can tell you that.
Oh, man.
Yet victory brought no lasting solace. With the old ones vanquished and the Satan shattered, Szarekh recognized that the age of the Necrons had passed, for now. The mantle of galactic dominance would soon fall to the Eldari, heirs of the Old One's legacy, and sworn enemies of the Necrons. The Eldari had survived where the creators had fallen, and the weakened Necrons could not stand against their ascendant power. Knowing the impermanence of all mortal reigns, Szarekh decreed a final plan. He ordered the transformation of the remaining Necron cities into vast tomb complex, threaded with stasis crypts to preserve his people for long eons to come. Let the Eldari shape the galaxy for their fleeting moment. The Necrons, eternal and unyielding, would endure. Szarekh's last command was for his people to sleep for 60 million years, to awaken an age where they might reclaim their lost glory. When the Tomb Worlds sealed its gates, Szarekh severed the command protocols, binding his will to his people. He deemed himself unworthy of their obedience, for he had failed them. Without looking back, the Silent King departed the galaxy, embarking on his self-imposed exile into the galactic void. It's kind of cool how it all worked out for everything. The old ones, they seeded the galaxy. They made a bunch of little races. Their favorite one happened to be the Eldari, who then, were ultimately destined to become the next rulers of the galaxy. The Satan and Necron, they had their war and limited the Necrons' numbers severely. So then there was no more kind of will or numbers to fight against the Eldari to kind of let them fully shape and form up and rule the galaxy for the next long time, really. Like, they had control for, maybe 60 million years, really. A long time.
I wonder what made the Silent King decide, okay, 60 million years, that's the number we're going for here. Like, that seemed like a very fortuitous random event or random decision.
Yeah, he's got like his cooking kitchen dial and he just spun it 4 times and it just spun to that
I was about to say he pulls out his phone, scrolls through the clock, sets a timer for 60 million years, and then just kind of goes into a self-imposed meditation for a little bit. I mean, that's the crazy thing, though, as you were talking about with the Eldari, and he knew that, like, especially going with the old ones, that empires rise and fall. All he had to do was kind of bide his time for the Eldari to rise, have their moment, and then at some point they were going to fall, and then the Necron would come back and kind of claim the galaxy for themselves.
Yeah. Jump into the chat before we continue on. T-Freeze says, how would they reform? Do they just merge back? I'm not totally sure what he's referring to, so maybe add some
shards.
Context.
The Satan shards.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Honestly, I don't know. So it's kind of going into the comment from, so Nemo also says, in the same way that, hold on. Nemo says, it's worth noting that Satan are never stored whole. They're only fragments. They had to be shattered. They're that powerful. I know if enough Satan shards get together, they make a transcended Satan, and that's what's trapped inside the Tesseract vaults. And they are so strong, they are constantly destroying the Tesseract vault from the inside, and the outside has scarab beetles running all over it, rebuilding it as it's being destroyed. So it's just this endless loop. So I think maybe like just chunks of them get back together, and that's how they get more powerful.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks it might be like the kind of like how the T-1000, the liquid Terminator, like you can freeze them, bust them up into so many different pieces, but eventually it all just kind of converge. They'll find each other and kind of converge back together.
So, yeah, I guess like typically when we're picturing like a shard, it's like, a shard of glass or something, a physical thing, and not necessarily like a shard of energy. Like Wraithbone is like solidified warp energy. So it has a different property to it than just a shard of glass where, you put them together and they can grow and meld and expand or whatever. So kind of cool concept. Yeah.
This is probably a question for you, Mark, because your knowledge of lore is top tier. But can like a shard of, let's say, the Deceiver and a shard of the Void Dragon, could they combined and become something like an amalgamation of the two?
Yeah, that would be interesting. And then you almost have like the insane Satan shard where they're battling against each other. I don't know if I have a good answer, but I would imagine like one would overpower the other one and steal its energy. Just, you know, they feast off suns, they feast off Necrontyr. You put one shard at the Nightbringer and it's more powerful than the Deceiver. It devours that one and makes a bigger Nightbringer one, as opposed to like a bipolar Satan shard. But I could also see that kind of happening. I know, Gerald, you're like a big Necron guy. What are your thoughts on kind of that?
My knowledge really is a lot more limited than Mark's, but as far as I know, it's almost like, I don't know. I kind of see it the way Mark is talking about, with like one's more powerful than the other, so it's going to subsume it. But the problem that you have though is like, because the Satan are like physical gods, like they cannot actually die. You can only bust them up into so many pieces and just scatter their essence that way. Because if you can't kill them outright, because that's like reality warping stuff. That's like warp abomination related things. It's
Yeah, like if you
put this
actually
succinctly.
destroyed a Necron Satan, would you destroy the galaxy or the universe? Like you said, there are these reality creating, bending, warping gods. Very different than the gods of the warp. They are the actual gods of reality. They can manipulate reality just like the chaos gods manipulate the warp.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to destroy it, what happens?
And you, like, because they're so intrinsically connected to like the fabric of reality, you can't really destroy that. Or like we do not possess the power to do such a thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like unstoppable force meets immovable object.
Yeah, well, you guys were kind of discussing it. I went through Google just to ask it and see if it says anything, and there are no definitive answers. The only thing it's really telling me is that a transcendent Catan is made up of between 12 to hundreds of ordinary smaller Catan shards.
Cool.
And that's it.
Yeah, I kind of like this like story arc though I'm developing of like the bipolar Satan shard, where it's, you know, a mix of two prominent ones, and they just happen to have equal kind of energy, so they're always kind of battling and flipping and flopping.
Mm-hmm.
If
You'd
Two-Face
almost
was a
want to
star
choose.
god.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I like it. We need it. We need it now.
I mean, the Necron Dynasty I was working on, because I have a shard of the Void Dragon in my pile of shame, but I was wanting to paint it in the style of my Dynasty, which is like the center chest is just like burning from the inside out. So I was just like, I want to see if I can write it, because it's just like a shard. It can be influenced by how the dynasty is treating it, working with it, or how it's being used by that particular dynasty. So that might evolve the personality a little bit more than a different shard of the Void Dragon, or, you know, so on and so forth.
Sure. Yeah. Like, yeah, it gets its own little bit of personality as it develops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You mentioned painting, and I kind of just picture the Two-Face shard, half and half painted, half glowing purple, half painted green. Very,
that would be cool.
very fun.
That would be epic.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to making Satan, do you think you guys have like pretty free reign in making whatever kind of Satan you want? Like, I know they have like 10 named ones, but there's more than just 10, right? Like, there's assumably thousands, almost infinite, or like,
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good question, because your creative ability, I don't know.
And
sure.
those Big 10, like, they're over like very specific things according to the Necrontyr. So what's to say there's not dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of others that either just exist or they represent something else of Necrontyr life that we don't know. Just like in Greek mythology, there's, yeah, there's the big 12 Olympian gods, but there's numerous other, nature spirits, other minor gods and whatnot. So I feel like you do have that freedom to kind of make up what you want, as long as you're not obviously breaking any lore stuff like, oh, this is more powerful than the Shard of the Deceiver, or this is more,
Yeah. So now 2 more thoughts. Like, Gerald, you're saying for writing your lore, you kind of had it so, like, depending on how your Tomb World treats him, the color glows or changes. He acts differently. Like, I wonder if that is the way all Satan are. So, like, they all start at a neutral baseline. They're just feeding on suns. They don't have any real thoughts or goals or priorities. But then as soon as they interact with something, that's kind of what starts to like flare up their personality. Like, why does the burning one like to burn things? Well, that was just kind of, maybe he hung out with a pyromaniac for a little too long, and that was kind of his flavor. Or, when talking about this kind of ancient lore, like 60 million year old lore, it's hard to come up with the exact answer, but that's kind of an interesting thought of, if you are trying to write your own Satan, like, what was their first encounter? Who was it with? Did they encounter the orcs first, and now this Satan is incredibly warlike, maybe?
Things to consider.
I think it's all good questions. Yeah, for sure.
And the other question I have, that since we're talking about Satan, is there has to be Satan in other galaxies, just based on the concept of what they are. These like kind of creator reality gods or whatever. They can't just be local to the Milky Way galaxy. There has to be Satans across all the galaxies, I would imagine.
I mean, you could branch that off into, do the warp gods exist in all the other galaxies out there? Or is it just confined to the Milky Way?
Yeah.
Or there might be some kind of warp adjacent gods in other galaxies that, may not necessarily be Tzeentch, Khorne, Nurgle, blah, 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 but it might be some equivalent.
Yeah. Callus says, are there Satans that are pro-Imperium or Chaos? I don't think pro-Chaos, just for the fact that they can't engage with Chaos and warp things. In fact, warp and Chaos is kind of their like antitheum. Like, it's the opposite of what they are. They are based in this reality fully, and they can't really interact with the warp in that way. But pro-Imperium, like we said, like maybe some Imperial planet came across this star god and they were sacrificing Xenos to it and feeding this star god unknowingly, the Satan, and became friendly. So it's like, I'll help the Imperium. They always give me all these Xenos. Or I just hover over the battlefield of 100 million dead guardsmen and devour their souls, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Hey, guardsmen, if you want to stop dying on the battlefield, why don't you step into this little biotransference engine? We'll change you into these awesome mech bodies.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think I read somewhere that there are Necron that actually do that to humans.
That's cool. So that's fun to know that that's possible. We're getting some fun comments in the chat. Does the warp exist in other galaxies? Yeah, I think so, but I think the extent and what it is different. Like, I think the further you get away from the Milky Way galaxy, Khorne becomes less powerful. Now, we don't know. There's really nothing written about other galaxies. But I just think, like, okay, the way these gods work is like our emotions, like specifically humans, it seems. Humans' emotions really feed the warp. Yes, Eldar ones do too. Yeah, okay, there's some other ones that do as well. But it seems like humans have a very different relationship with the warp. So I'd imagine the further away you get from it, the less powerful it'd be. But then you get that flip side where it's like, well, the warp is everywhere and nowhere. It's all encompassing, both in time and space and all that, so who the fuck knows?
Right. I think my favorite part about 40K is that it's confined to the Milky Way, that they don't really, it's not like universe expanding. I mean, the Milky Way is such a big place as it is. It gives a lot of freedom when it comes to creativity. I don't really want to know about like other places. I feel like it keeps it more grounded in our own lives, just being like our galactic neighborhood.
Yeah, no, for sure. Otherwise, you just deal with such a huge scale that it just becomes unmanageable. Like
Oh yeah.
sometimes it's already like hard to be like, okay, why do I care if fucking 100 worlds got destroyed? Like there's a billion other ones in the Milky Way, you know.
Right.
And I think for
And
that reason alone that you just mentioned is like why a lot of sci-fi is mostly like on the largest scale is usually just restricted to like the galaxy. Maybe your local group, but it's usually just restricted to the galaxy in scale just because it's just, you know.
Yeah.
Man, we've gone on
Yeah,
a
and
wild
like
tangent.
galaxies I love it though.
Yeah, me
Space. Yeah, like galaxies like so it's so hard to understand how long 60 million years is, but it's even harder to understand how far apart galaxies are. You know, from us to the next planet over, it's like 10 light years or something like that. It would take us infinite amount of time to try to get there. And then to leave galaxies and interconnect galaxies, it's it's indescribable. It's incomprehensible truly how big it all is.
Yeah, I mean that's why they call the space between galaxies the void, because there's just nothing there. Who knows? It's all speculation.
Yeah. All right. Any other of these comments sound interesting to you guys?
I mean, they're all interesting.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
Yeah.
for those you guys can't see listening to this, but it's just this endless flow of all these interesting ideas. I love reading them as we're going through.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, definitely maybe go if you're not watching or you haven't been in the chat room, come on in. It's pretty neat. It's pretty cool. Just join the Patreon, $2.50 an hour, $5 an hour. No, a month, I mean. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's very cool. There's some interesting ideas. And I think we could get derailed here for the rest of the show if we wanted, but let's carry
Oh,
on.
absolutely.
In the endless blackness between galaxies, Szarekh waged wars against the horrors that dwelt within the celestial darkness. He claimed dominion over barbarous empires, subdued realms of chaos and madness, and amassed untold riches. This new era, the third mantle of the Necron existence, saw Szarekh preparing a legacy for his people, a new inheritance forged in the desolate expanse beyond the stars. Ever vigilant, he guarded the borders of the Necrontyr's slumber, ensuring their safety as they waited for their great awakening. For 60 million years, the Necrons lay in silence, their dynasties dormant yet patient. In 774 M41, the Silent King returned to the galaxy. His exile had brought him face to face with the Tyranids, an intergalactic scourge threatening to consume all life. Szarekh recognized the existential threat they posed. If the Tyranids devoured the galaxy, the Necrons would not have no living vessels in which their consciousness could one day be transferred. Breaking his self-imposed exile, Szarekh returned to his rally, his people, determined to confront his new enemy and ensure the Necrons' ultimate ascension. So yeah, that's another interesting aspect about the Necron. Like, yeah, they want to lord over people, but also Szarekh specifically wants to find a new host for his people, a new race of people, and it can't just be robots, and it probably can't just be some like bio-created construct. I think he wants like a real creature.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Absolutely. I mean, he probably the horror you'd feel. It's like those moments in movies where it's like, "What have I done?" kind of thing. You just have sacrificed your entire population to become mindless robots, and now you won the war, but at what cost?
Yep, and there's actually an interesting, I don't know, I'm going to hold my tongue just in case this gets brought up a little bit later, but there is something interesting about what Szarekh actually did while he was outside the galaxy. So we'll come back to that in momentarily. But to continue on, when the Silent King returned, he did so with renewed purpose and a reconstructed Triarch Council. Alongside him stood two pharaohs of great renown, Hapthora, the Radiant, and Mesophet, the Shadowed Hand. Together they ascended to the dais of dominion, commanding authority over their awakening empire. Bound within Zarek's grasp was a shattered Satan, known ominously as the Enchained, a grim reminder of the Necrons' past triumphs and tragedies. Yet Szarekh found his people in a state far removed from readiness. The great sleep had not been kind. Many tomb worlds lay in ruin, destroyed by time or encroaching enemies. Others remained in a slumber, their inhabitants unresponsive or damaged by millennia of decay. Those who had awakened by the dawn of the late 41st millennium were fractured, disoriented, or diminished in their grandeur. The galaxy had changed drastically in their absence. Humanity and countless other alien species now sprawled across the worlds that had once belonged to the Necrons. Worse still, the galaxy itself was unraveling. The immaterium, that tumultuous sea of madness, had begun to tear into real space. The Great Rift, birthed from the fall of Cadia during the 13th Black Crusade, split the galaxy in two, unleashing demonic terrors and disrupting the cosmic order. Against this backdrop of ruin and uncertainty, the fourth mantle of Necron existence began to unfold.
This is also another part too that often isn't talked about when we're talking about his return. Not only was it the Tyranids, but it was also this great warp rift that opened up and like literally split the galaxy in half. If that's not enough to kind of get your attention back to your home galaxy, you know, not much else is. Like, holy fuck, what happened back there? You can visibly see this like rift just rip the Milky Way in half. I picture it from like, you know, we have a picture of what the Milky Way galaxy looks like when we zoom out and, you know, we have the star map and you can see that purple line going across it. Like he looks back one day and just sees that and like, whoa, what the heck happened there?
I mean, with good modern day telescopes, we can see distant galaxies from our own planet. So I can imagine he's out in the void, kind of looking back at the Milky Way, and all of a sudden it's just growing brighter one day. And you zoom in on it a little bit, and you just see it just split down the middle.
Yeah, that's it. I'm waking up my Necrons.
One thing that you mentioned, and I just wanted to say too, what a baller move having a Catan shard as your own personal power pack on your throne. If you look at him, the mini for tabletop, you can actually see it. Yeah, super cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Callus Typhon asks, how many true dynasties are there? So,
Yeah, I've never really heard the term true dynasties, but a lot.
Yeah, I know. It's like anything. There's a lot of named ones, but then it leaves it kind of up to you to create your own lore.
Yeah,
Galaxy's a big place, and GW, as we've established before, is not good with numbers.
I mean, I like that portion of it. It's like the whole thing with the Space Marines. There's a whole bunch of named chapters of Space Marines, but then there's so many unknown ones, and that lets you create these like custom chapters, lets you paint them how you want. It's very similar to the dynasties with the Necron.
Yeah,
sure.
I really like that way of approaching it. So that way you feel like, oh, it's actually part of the timeline, part of the canon, so to speak.
Yeah, it grounds you into the lore.
Yeah,
you get to be a part of it.
Man,
exactly.
this comment section is out of control today. In the best
I
way. Like,
noticed.
all these comments, I'm like, oh my goodness, we could get lost in each one of these all night long.
Necron fanboys rejoice!
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
trying
for
to go
real.
through them as we're doing this, just to kind of keep it current with what people are asking.
Checks. The Silent Kings dynasty is the only true dynasty.
That's canon.
It is. It's the lead one. Now say something to Emotech. He's probably not going to have good words to say about that. But anyways.
Yeah. Treffy's here says, how many Necron are there? I've seen conflicting things, with a few billion to as many as the Imperium currently. And that's the thing, is every planet could theoretically be a tomb world. So you never know, because all you see right now in the galaxy are the ones that have awakened.
Exactly. And they're still waking up. So it's
yeah, and with that
wild.
brings all types of new Necron creations too. Like, you know, have we really seen everything that they have to offer? Like, not only in numbers, but in creations themselves, like canoptic creatures and whatever. dangerous relic changing item or galaxy changing relics. I mean,
There is one downside to all of this because they're soulless robots. They don't have a way of procreating like the Imperium or the Eldar do. So every single loss is permanent. So it wouldn't be a good idea to have your numbers so low and try to reconquer the galaxy when you can't replace those losses.
That's true, but
Yeah.
they also have the living metal, so they're pretty indestructible. I mean, you
Yeah.
can definitely kill them, but they have the chance to rebuild themselves.
Exactly. It's very hard to do, but just
Yeah.
knowing the fact that if you lose one, that's it. There's no building that back up
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
that happens. So
You know, it would be one of the craziest things. Could you imagine? So these dynasties are kind of waking up here, there, a planet or two at a time. If Szarekh on his throne all of a sudden just hits like a big red button, and they all wake up at once.
oh God, I don't like that. Yeah, that's a hell of a button to press.
That would be so epic, but so terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. Callus asks, and this is one of my favorite minis in the whole range. Are there Necron Titans? And like not just on the Necron range, they're called the Necron Szarekh Heavy Construct, and they look kind of a cross between like a spider and a prairie mantis and a crab. Like there's this kind of cool creation. They're very cool, and they're huge too. They're truly massive. They're on scale with Titans for sure.
That is a super cool mini. I've actually never seen that one before. It kind of what it reminds me of to people that can't see it is if you took a Tyranid Hierophant Biotitan but changed it into being a Necron.
Yeah.
Like it
Kinda
has
makes me
that
think
kind
of
of
the,
big legs to it.
kind of makes me think of the crab droids from Star Wars. So
Yeah,
Star Wars
yeah.
reference.
Ah.
Let me
The
see if I can-
Droidicas.
Not the droidicas. There's actually like a crab droid. Let me see if I can share my screen. All right. Let's see here. Nope. Sorry,
Yeah,
technology
Jack says now make him fight a Hierophant. I just played Space Marine 2, the final operation. I won't tell anything for spoilers, but
Oh, I did as well.
yeah.
So good.
There we go.
Yeah. Fucking fun.
I want to say stuff, but I'll hold my tongue.
Yeah, that game's still relatively new, and I know some people haven't gotten to it
Yeah.
yet. So one day we'll get to talk about it.
Okay.
All right. Shall we carry on?
Yes. Okay. Even as his people struggled to awaken, the Silent King was already among them, hidden in plain sight. Disguised and working through unknowing Necron overlords and cryptex, Szarekh embarked on a secret pilgrimage across two worlds. He sought to inspire a renewed belief in Necron ascendancy, planting the seeds of unity and purpose in a fractured empire. His loyal Triarch Praetorians answered his call, spreading his influence and rallying the faithful to his cause. Szarekh wielded the vast legions of his dynasty with precision, engaging in campaigns only where total victory ensured his continued anonymity. His schemes were colossal in scope, incomprehensible to the younger races that swarmed the stars. These plans sought to stabilize the galactic stage, crush emerging threats, and unite the Necrons against the Tyranid menace. For Szarekh foresaw the dire consequences if the younger species' futile efforts to combat the Tyranids only strengthened the hive fleets of an unstoppable degree. The Silent King, ever watchful, prepared his people for a future that only he could envision. The younger races would learn in time that the very fabric of reality was the Necrons to command, and that their ancient masters had returned to reclaim what was theirs. The shadows between the stars whispered of an unspeakable horror, patient and poised to strike. Beyond the galaxy's borders lay the Celestian realms Szarekh had conquered during his exile. Yes, we're talking about that. Vast dominions awaiting the awakening of his people. Yet these triumphs would remain hidden until the final mantles of existence fell away. Only then would the Necrons fully comprehend the glories their Silent King had wrought for them, an inheritance forged in silence, destined for eternity. So I got a little excited because that last paragraph was actually directed from the newest edition of the Necron Codex, where it mentions Szarekh was spending those 60 million years actually trying to basically conquer other galaxies, or at least that's how it was worded. So he was actually trying to do shit for his people in his exile.
Yeah, and that might be the only other little bit of information we have about outside galaxies. It's just there is life in other galaxies. Not only are there Tyranids coming from other dimensions, but if you go in a different direction, there's other things going on for sure. Very interesting.
So I got a little bit of headcanon stuff for you guys. So out in the void, outside the Milky Way, kind of where Szarekh was hanging out, what if there was just like maybe billions, if not trillions, of Necron holding back the Tyranid onslaught, and the ones we're seeing in the galaxy are like the 1% pushing through this like barrier? Like the Necrons are out there in the void right now, just kind of holding them at bay. Like just in 60 million years, he's kind of been building up his forces outside the Milky Way a little bit, and then he sees the Tyranids coming, and then he's trying to stop them a little bit. I don't know, just a little bit of flavor.
That's an interesting concept, though.
Because if he is going,
I was just gonna say it never specified like how much of a fleet went with him, or whether he went alone, or so there's no telling who all traveled with him if they were still awake.
And my thought too is like, so he goes and he has conquered other empires, and he is looking for a new host body. So maybe he has made some prototype hosts or whatever, where it's like, he's put some of his Necron into these host bodies, or on the flip side, he's taken some of these other races that he's conquered and ran them through the biotransference themselves to make his fleet even bigger.
And the other thing, it's really cool.
What's the other thing, Gerald?
Okay. And the other thing that the Codex itself mentioned is like there's almost, since the Great Rift and since with the Tyranids, there's almost like this ticking time bomb issue, because with the Necrons awakening, there's millions of years of decay and ruin or whatnot. It's messing with their programming. And one short little blip in the Codex mentioned like a Pharaoh was fighting a like an Eldari Farseer or something like that, something like whatnot. But he was schooling the Eldar in this fight, but then he was like flashing back to like the time of the War in Heaven, the Great Sleep or whatnot. He's like, and he was thinking, wait a second, this is an anomaly. This shouldn't be happening. So then he quickly dispatches the Eldar just to like recollect himself, because like his own programming is failing him. So there's that ticking time bomb issue going on with the Necrons now by M42 or M41.
That's cool. Another little piece to throw into this mix here of the void is, I did a little Google search. Can planets exist between the voids of galaxies? And the answer is yes, planets can exist between the voids. Extragalactic planets, these planets are either star-bound or rogue, and are located outside the Milky Way, and they're very difficult to detect due to their vast distances, but there is indirect evidence that they exist. Rogue planets, these planets are able to roam interstellar space independently of any star. The first rogue planets discovered were very large, but smaller than the ones also known to exist. And intergalactic medium planets. This is the warm, hot medium that is believed to contain much of the ordinary matter in the universe. Okay, now we get into some stuff that's above my pay grade, but
there's actually a theory out there that there is another planet in our solar system that has such a wide orbit that we can't quite detect it, but it could it gives, some of our planets have a weird orbit to them that explains it.
Purge right away said it's Planet X. For sure. I've heard of that. And they're saying that's what caused a lot of disasters on our planet that we trace back, is that one came too close and that threw off our planet's gravitational cycle, or threw off whatever it may be, and really fucked our planet up.
Yeah.
Nibiru, yeah, that's another one. That's I think that's probably the same one, but a different name for one of these like rogue planets that has that super wide arc. But now we're just lost in fucking.
I was just about to say I feel so bad because we're talking about doing an episode on Szarekh to all the listeners out there, and we're going on some wild tangents. If
Yeah.
that shows anything, it just shows how passionate we are about the Necrons and space.
Absolutely.
Tell you what,
Dark
guys, I'm gonna try to
supremacy.
get Neil deGrasse Tyson on. He can teach us all about this stuff. So, let's reach out to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let's reach out to Henry Cavill. And I
Awesome.
guess let's reach out to Eric and see if we can get a hold of that guy again,
Can I talk into your stomach? So again, I don't want to keep going on these wild tangents. I actually went and saw Neil deGrasse Tyson live last year, and it was like the coolest show ever.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
like
he did
him
it.
in anything except for when he's talking about space. But when he's talking about
Mhm.
space, man, he's got some fun shit going on.
Oh, absolutely. It's super cool. Okay. Get back on topic a little bit. So when we were talking about Szarekh, the Silent King, he is part of a triarch. He's got 2 other members with him. Those members are Hepthatra the Radiant. So Hepthatra, known to the people as Hepthatra the Radiant, stands as one of the 3 apex rulers of the Necron Triarch, a council revived in the Era Indominus to guide their fractured species towards unity and ascension. Bringing a title that evokes the brilliance of a star, Hepthatra embodies the relentless intellect and sovereign pride of the Necron Pharaon. Necron Pharaon, what a tongue twister. His radiant epithet is no mere vanity. It reflects the literal light of his gilded necrodermis, an artistry of ancient metallurgy that claims as both armor and proclamation of his enduring power. In life, he was a paragon of Necron nobility, a peerless strategist and orator whose voice once rallied entire dynasties to the will of the Triarch. Now, in Undeath, he shines anew, an unyielding reminder of the glory his people once commanded and the glory he seeks to reclaim. Alongside Mesophet, the Shadowed Hand, and the Silent King Szarekh, Hepthatra forms the core of the Necron Triarch and its turbulent age. Each ruler a study in contrast. Where Mesophet thrives in the obscuring veil of secrecy and the Silent King bears the burden of penance and ambition, Hepthatra stands as the beacon of inspiration. His presence on the dais of dominion is both symbolic and practical. He is the unifying figure who rekindles the faith of slumbering Necron legions and galvanizes the hesitant to action. Yet beneath the radiance lies an unrelenting pragmatism, for Hepthatra understands the stakes of this new era. The galaxy is ablaze with war, and the Necron's survival demands nothing less than the full might of their ancient empire. For Hepthatra the Radiant, every calculated maneuver and stirring declaration is a step towards a singular vision, the restoration of the Necron race to its rightful dominion of the stars. I mean, yeah, if I had someone in my top 3, that's probably someone I want to be. Someone who can make the hard decisions, that pragmatism, but also just be a beacon of inspiration.
Yeah. It's interesting how often themes carry through like this. The theme of his 2 leaders are he's got his forward facing leader, and then the next one we'll talk about is Mesophet, the Shadowed Hand. So he's got his forward facing leader, he's glorious and radiant, you can count on him. And then he's kind of got the second guy who can get up to the things behind the scenes. He can sully his hands and keep kind of things going in that direction. You can see this with the way the Emperor kind of did things with the Custodes, his right hand, this glorious beacon, and then the Sister of Silence, his left hand, that's more kind of not underhanded, but this kind of more they deal with warp presences and kind of more of the unknown and kind of that aspect of things. So I kind of like how he's got these two facing hands.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like a mirrored version of the Imperium's, their triarch with the Emperor, and as you were saying, the Custodes on one side and the Sisters of Silence on the other side. Yeah.
Yep. And along with like trying to rally the dynasties, Nemo here makes a pretty good point because Szarekh got rid of the command protocols before the Great Sleep. So if there are any more Necrons that do follow him, that is genuine. That is truly genuine loyalty. So,
yeah, interesting. And it's interesting that he can get that kind of loyalty even out of the Necron warrior class, you know? Yeah.
I like that it sets up too, like if you're playing the tabletop and that's what you're a fan of, to be able to fight like Necron versus Necron, because you could have like one Szarekh loyalist and then the other one's kind of rebelling against him.
Man, it's crazy how they managed to do that with every race and how every race isn't unified
Every
at all. I love 40K for that, man. Like, it just allows you to do whatever you want. They really just want you to come play in their universe.
Absolutely. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm always I'll be a tabletop first kind of guy, lore second. I mean, very, very, very close second, but I like that they set that up because you can really just create your own stories on the tabletop, and this gives you the opportunity to do that.
Thanks, GW. Never change.
Well, so the second of the Pharaon in the Triarch is Mesophet, the Shadowed Hand. Mesophet, the enigmatic figure known as Mesophet the Shadowed Hand, serves as one of the three supreme rulers of the reconstituted Necron Triarch in the Era Indominus. Where his counterpart Hepthatra embodies radiant authority, Mesophet personifies the unseen force that shapes events from the shadows. In life, his machinations were legendary, his will extending like an invisible web through the courts of dynasties and the battlefields of conquest. In the deathless eternity, his necrodermis is a work of ominous artistry, a darkened alloy etched with shifting glyphs of dread and command. The title, Shadowed Hand, is a tribute not only to the mastery of covert strategy, but also to the unseen power he wields, both as a ruler of the dynasty and as a cornerstone of the Triarch's ambition to reclaim the stars. Mesophet's return to power alongside Hepthatra the Radiant and the Silent King Szarekh marks a balance of light and shadow within the Triarch's rule. While Szarekh carries the burden of their species' past and Hepthatra inspires with luminous resolve, Mesophet works in secrecy to ensure their enemies' destruction and the Necrons' resurgence. His influence is pervasive yet elusive, guiding the course of galactic events with precision and subtlety. It is said that where his shadow falls, nothing escapes his gaze, and no resistance endures his wrath. Mesophet sees the galaxy as a chessboard of countless lesser pieces to be manipulated, crushed, or discarded as necessary. For the Necrons to ascend, the Shadowed Hand knows every move must be deliberate, every strike decisive, and every secret safeguarded. In this age of turmoil, his silent influence promises both fear and inevitability, a testament to the quiet dominance that will one day see the Necrons rise again.
Cool. Yeah, so kind of that subtle covert guy, his will is everywhere. Whether you see it or not, he is manipulating the events at hand. So here's the question for you guys. Like, I'm creating my own Lorehammer 4-arc because there's going to be, a bunch of people. Do you guys want to be my Shadowed Hand? Do you want to be my Radiant Front? Where am I putting you in the ranking of position here?
So every good leader needs a spy master. And I definitely think I'd take the Shadowed Hand, pulling strings from the back.
Okay, perfect.
But see, I'm kind of like that too. I'm more of the work behind the scenes kind of fella. Obviously, I'm hiding my actual face in my tech priest gear. So
yeah. And we know Christian would want nothing more to be the front-facing person. So maybe no, we're not going to give that to him. Fuck that guy.
He's the Catan shard that's on the back of your throne.
That we're harnessing all the hatred people pour into him. It's so funny, man. Every email I get, it's like, oh, blah blah blah, love the show. Here's what army I'm working. By the way, fuck Christian, and also I like this army.
I feel so bad for him. He gets so much hate, but honestly, it's loving.
I love the guy. I always wonder, if his wife knew what people were talking about about him on the internet, what would she think? Yeah, it's a giant meme, but what would his wife think? It's a thought that keeps me warm at night. I can say that.
Is there such thing as lovingly bullying someone?
Yes, there is.
Well, when you're in a friend group and you're not lovingly bullying someone, what are you? Are you even friends? What are you doing?
Yeah, this is true.
All right. So I do want to throw it out to the chat real quick. Where would you place us if Idis was a Triarch? I just want to kind of see people's opinions as we continue on.
Yeah, and just to broaden the plot there, we also got Logan and Court from the Imperial Relics episode. I think they're joining our crew on that 3rd episode a week. So, rank these guys. Who's doing what for me? Who's going to be my assassin? Who's going to be my cook? I need a cook. We know I like to eat. Yeah, Nick's raising his hand on that one. I don't know if he wanted to be my cook or my assassin, but...
Assassin.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, or like a bosun's mate or something like that,
Yes. All right, let's carry on to some of the war gear that we have from the Triarch. First up, we got the Scepter of Eternal Glory. The Scepter of Eternal Glory is a prestigious staff wielded by the high-ranking Necron leader, symbolizing their authority. It functions as both a powerful close combat weapon and/or a tool for enhancing the command abilities of its bearer. The staff is imbued with arcane Necron energies capable of causing catastrophic damage in melee, while also boosting the leadership and strength of the Necron forces under the wielder's command. Up next, we got the Weapons of the Final Triarch. The Weapons of the Final Triarch are a set of ancient artifacts wielded by the elite Triarch Praetorians. When doing some research on this, it was hard to separate. Like, some of these weapons are not just for them alone. They kind of branch out. Like, the weapons of the Final Triarch include weapons such as the Rod of Covenant, Void Blaze, and Particle Casters, which are primarily wielded by Triarch Praetorians, which we'll get to later. So there's kind of some crossover here in case we're like, well, why are we talking about them all of a sudden? But anyways, these weapons are used to enforce Necron laws. The Rod delivers devastating energy blasts, while the Void Blade disintegrates foes at the molecular level, and the Particle Caster fires antimatter streams that obliterate matter. These weapons are symbols of power and instruments of destruction in the service of the Triarch. The Annihilation Beamer. You guys got a comment?
This is towards specifically towards Jax, because apparently he took your question. Mark Farron, Nick Cook, Gerald Janitor.
Gerald Janitor.
I'm shoving you. I'm shoving you in the biotransference next.
And then more comments. Eric, food for the flayed ones. And then Grimaldus says, no. Flayed ones wear Eric now. Okay. We got the Annihilation Beamer next. The Annihilation Beamer is a devastating weapon mounted on Necron vehicles like the Triarch Stalker or the Dais of Dominion. It fires a concentrated beam of destructive energy capable of piercing even the strongest armor or vaporizing entire squads, used primarily for anti-armor and heavy target elimination. It delivers immense precision and raw destructive force, making it a key tool for Necron commanders in large-scale battles. And finally, we got the Dais of Dominion. The Dais of Dominion is a floating command platform used by the high-ranking Necron leaders such as Pharaons or the Silent King. It serves as both a throne and mobile command center. Equipped with powerful weapons and defensive systems, the Dais of Dominion allows its wielder to remain at the heart of the forces, directing battle from positions of supreme authority while ensuring protection and enhancing their combat effectiveness. And on this dais, as Nick mentioned, is the Enchained strapped on the back like a fancy battery. The Satan, known as the Enchained, is an ancient and malevolent entity bound in eternal servitude to the Necrons. Bound atop a vast ornate platform, the Enchained Satan is imprisoned and restrained by powerful Necron technology, preventing it from unleashing its full cosmic power. As a being of pure energy, the Satan is capable of manipulating the fabric of reality itself, but its power is shackled, its form unable to break free from its prison. The Enchained Satan serves both as a symbol of Necron's dominance over their former gods and a weapon of untold potential, harnessed for the destruction of their enemies. In battle, the Enchained Satan is often employed to annihilate the foe with devastating energy blasts or warp-altering powers, though its full potential is kept in check by the restraints that bind it.
It's like one of those awesome things that if you're like this grand emperor that you want to do is show off your wealth. And how better can you show that off by having one of your slain enemies chained behind you, powering your Dais of Dominion and casting out all sorts of different abilities and stuff. It's like one of the biggest things I hear from like the Mad Max movies is if everyone's short on gasoline, why is everyone driving around? Well, because if you're this if you're this big leader or trying to start a movement or something, you want to show your wealth. And that's exactly what he's doing by having this Catan enchained to him.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah.
Mhm.
The other thing that before we jump into the next little portion of the Ankh of the Triarch and what the Triarch, who functions under them and all that, the model has three kind of components to it. It has the Silent King on his dais of dominion with his two pharaons, and then it also has these two pillar obelisk type things. I forgot to include them in my notes, so maybe I don't know if you guys know what they are off the top of your head. Otherwise, I can Google search now.
I'm gonna mess up the name on it, so give me 30 seconds, and I will do that for you.
I'll describe them though. They are these glowing, floating pillars, obelisks, I will say, and I will say it again. They are obelisks of sorts.
So they're called two triarchal menhirs, and I know in the tabletop they can shoot out. I think it's annihilator beams is what they give you. So they're almost,
and then they
like,
probably also have like a shield ability, maybe that kind of blocks and.
I'm not 100% sure if they have that. They're almost like obelisk bodyguards a little bit, like just extra weapons he has at his disposal.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, so the combination of all that makes it a pretty beefy kind of situation for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I do remember one thing from his rule set is like if his model does die, he can set off a self-destruct that basically obliterates most of the playing field. So just as a kind of final fuck you. So
and destroys the lore for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that Ankh of the Triarch, though. Every Necron carries the mark of the Triarch, a brand etched into their necrodermis, an enduring connection to their race's ancient legacy. In the 41st millennium, this symbol, the Ankh of the Triarch, serves as both a beacon of hope and a shadow of despair. The Silent King's long absence and the endless years of the Great Sleep have dimmed its once vital significance, transforming it into a relic of faded glory. To some noble lords among the Necron dynasties, the Ankh remains a rallying cry, a foundation upon which to rebuild the fractured empire. To others, it is little more than a hollow emblem, a whisper of a bygone era, whose grandeur has been irrevocably lost. Yet, even among those who have forsaken its deeper meaning, the Ankh endures, a cartouche proudly displayed on every Necron's metallic frame, a mark none dare erase. Despite the passage of eons, the Ankh of the Triarch has remained immutable. Its precise curves and angles are replicated flawlessly across every bearer, untouched by time or degradation. Beneath the universal symbol, however, the dynasties have added their own mark of distinction. Each bears a glyph unique to their lineage, identifying the soldiers and servants of a pharaoh's armies. These dynastic sigils are often displayed alongside the Ankh, though their size and prominence are intentionally subordinate, a reflection of the eternal hierarchy that once placed the governing Triarch above the individual rulers. Thus, the Ankh of the Triarch persists, unchanged and unyielding, as both a reminder of past unity and as a symbol of future potential. Whether viewed as a sacred emblem of resurrection on a mere echo of a golden age long since tarnished, it remains a defining sigil of the Necron race, a testament to their shared origin and their undying ambition.
I recall back in the day, a young red-headed boy once filed off the Ankh on their chest because he wanted to paint his own symbol there. And I remember chastising him, saying, "You can't do that, homie. That's not allowed. It's not heresy, but it's not allowed, man. That is like the key symbol. That's the one thing that unites the Necron all together. It's the binding sigil of the Necron race, this Ankh of the Triarch. And yeah, you can maybe add to it slightly or paint a little bit around it or add to it in that regard. But to file it off means like you're no longer Necron. You're now something completely else.
Man,
one thing I love about the chat is we just have we had Jack say, where was that? Shit, I won't get the exact wording right, but basically said the flayed ones, the flayed ones, the Satan Lagdungi, let's see if I can say his fucking name. Landagor, Landagor, he was actually utterly destroyed during the War of Heaven. So you actually can kill star gods, and this is what's sweet about the live chat is I kind of forgot about that guy and that he was actually destroyed. And then the cause of that was the whole flare virus. So we were kind of talking earlier, like, can you destroy him? Like, what happens? You fucking break reality? And in a way, you kind of do.
This is what happens when you divide by 0.
Oh, God. No.
Yeah,
Jack's
and
the,
really for anyone
underrated.
that's anyone that's kind of listening into this episode that hasn't listened to the past episodes on Necron, definitely go back and listen to those, and especially like the War in Heaven episode that you guys did. It just touches upon each of those, like the flare virus, everything in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, we did a Satan episode around that like 33 mark, and I really like that one too. Just kind of learning about all the different varieties of Satan and what they could actually kind of mean and do, and yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, we just recently did the episode on the Arbites, so it's very fitting that we talk about these guys a little bit. The Triarch Praetorians. The Triarch Praetorians exist as relentless arbiters of the Necrontyr law. They the purpose unyielding and eternal. Forged to enforce the ancient codes of the Necrontyr Empire, they ensure that no dynasty forgets or deviates from the decrees of the Triarch. Their existence is an unbroken vigil, one that transcends allegiance to any Necron lord or overlord. They stand apart, untouched by fealty, empowered to censor any noble who dares to stray from the path of the ancient laws or betray the honor of the Necrontyr legacy. Since their inception in the epochs before the War in Heaven, the mission of the Triarch Praetorians has remained unchanged. They endure without hesitation, striving toward deities, form or order. Their soulless strive untempered by time. Rarely do these enforcers tread the battlefield. Their role is one of judgment and correction. They observe, ensuring the Necron overlords and lords adhere to the stricture of the Necrontyr honor. Only when a tomb world is unearthed or imperiled do they descend in mass. Their presence a cold assurance on the new asset will either be seamlessly integrated or implacably defended, with neither hesitation nor mercy. And a little bit about their history as well. In the ancient dynasties of the Necrons, the Praetorians were the relentless enforcers of the Triarch's will, tasked with ensuring that war, politics, and all actions of their kind adhered to the unyielding laws of the Necrontyr. Operating outside the conventional political structure, they possessed the right and the means to strike down any Necron lord, overlord, or pharaoh who dared to transgress the ancient edicts, their judgment as unyielding as the cold void itself. But their duty extended beyond mere enforcement. They were the last guardians of a dying order, sworn to ensure that the Necron dynasties would endure, their codes of law never forgotten. This, however, was a responsibility they ultimately failed. The War in Heaven shattered the Necron dynasties, and therefore the Praetorians fought as the vanguard. Their efforts were not enough. The shame of this failure drove them from the blissful oblivion of hibernation into hiding in the distant reaches of the galaxy. There, in a concealed fortress, they preserved what fragments of their ancient code they could, waiting for the moment when the Necrons would rise again. Knowing that uncertainty of their stasis technology, the Praetorians wandered the galaxy, masquerading as gods amongst primitive species, imposing the Necrontyr codes wherever they could. Most civilizations rejected their ways, but many more were destroyed in the ensuing conflicts, natural disasters, and the wrath of Aliatok's outriders. Despite the Eldari's interference, fragments of Triarch lore endured across these forgotten worlds. Now, as the Necrons stir from their slumber in the light 41st millennium, the Praetorians sense the time has come to reclaim what was lost. Their task, slow and relentless, sees them traveling from tomb world to tomb world, binding the shattered Necron dynasties together again. The search will take eons, for the galaxy is vast and many worlds are lost to time. Yet the Praetorians have no need for haste, only the burning determination to see their mission fulfilled. Once the tomb world is reclaimed, a Praetorian host is stationed in perpetuity to govern, defend, and ensure its protocols are upheld. Triarch Praetorians are often seen as the forefront of battle, whether defending against invaders or reclaiming lost worlds. No Necron lord would dare refuse their aid, for their combat skill remains sharp despite their immense age. When they take the field, they do not rush into the fray, instead watching from above on their gravity displacement packs. They wait, calculating, for the moment when their intervention may seem most impactful. And while the Praetorians share the Necron disdain for all other races, they have an ancient respect for those marked by their influence, sometimes deeming them honorable foes whose defeat must follow the ancient code of battle. Though such formalities frustrate commanders, few dare to share the overrule the Praetorians will. I mean, really, it shows just how much the Necrons are, as I said before, like a mirror image of the Imperium. I could almost imagine, too, like the Imperium is like the Necrontyr before they came, the Necron. Having these law holders like the Adeptus Arbites that we talked about.
Yeah.
It's another way of these checks on themselves that the Necron have as well, that we've also talked about in this episode, where they have these guys that go from dynasty to dynasty, make sure that the pharaohs, while there's a lot of political intrigue and drama and even murder potentially in the Necron court, the pharaohs make sure that things aren't getting too carried away. Or if there's like a dispute that can't quite be handled by the court, they call in pharaohs to be that final arbiter of the actual Triarch's will. The other fun thought I had about them too is there are planets that the Necron have taken over, and they have these like humanoids on the planet all worshiping the Necron, and these guys are kind of the emissaries to that planet, where they go down there and like, these are the things that we actually want you to know about us. These are the codes that we follow. These are the codes that you now follow. And if you don't, these are the guys that enforce it. It's not necessarily that they're going to send in a bunch of Necron warriors and wipe out the planet, or, they might just send these guys first as the emissaries of like, you've started to break some of our laws. Like, here's your punishment. They deal it out. And if, hopefully they get everything back in line and in working order so they don't have to bring in the other force. But like, it's this twofold law enforcement where they enforce the law on their own people, but also on other people.
And we've said it many times throughout the episode so far, that they have that need to rule. They don't want to outright just destroy. They want to send in these guys to kind of slowly start converting them to be these slaves of the Necron, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in that previous comment, or that previous section that you mentioned, like they show like a begrudging respect, especially for the warriors. It kind of makes me wonder like how the Praetorians kind of view the different factions that they encounter. Obviously, guardsmen, they're a bunch of tiny ants. Space Marines, they can put up a pretty good fight. Eldar, most hated nemesis, period. So moving on, but and then so on and so forth. I'm curious to see how like they perceive those enemies or whatnot.
Yeah. All right. Moving forward, we'll talk a little bit about their role and some of their war gear and how they do it and that kind of stuff. Praetorians are clad in some flawless necrodermis. As Necron royalty, their forms marked by tails and rib-like gravity displacement packs that coil across their spines. Among them, Triarch Praetorians stand apart, their rods of covenant, a symbol of the ancient Triarch's dominion over the Necrons' dynasty and the galaxy, often gripped in their hand. The rods are more than mere symbols. They are weapons of devastating power. The crackling energies they channel can be unleashed in short-range blasts or of annihilation, or directed with crushing force through melee strikes, reducing their foes to nothing less with brutal into nothingness with brutal efficiency. At times, Praetorians are equipped with void blades and particle casters, instruments of pure destruction. Void blades sever molecular bonds, each strike as a phase between dimensions, triggering atomic disintegration in their wake. Particle casters, like Necron particle weapons, unleash near invisible bursts of antimatter, reacting explosively with the very fabric of matter they strike. Praetorian Triarchs are heavy shock troops of the Necron armies, waging war as the living embodiment of Necron tradition. They are patient, methodical, and ever watchful, waiting for the right moment to tip the scales in battle in their favor. Once the decision to engage is made, they strike with terrifying precision, appearing from nowhere, rods of covenant in hand, reducing all in their path to dust with relentless, unyielding blasts from their arcane weapons.
I always thought the Necron weapons are so cool. They're very unique in what they do.
Yeah.
They have like that perfect aesthetic of like, you can vaguely get like a sense of like ancient Egyptian Skelevoids, but it's so advanced, like you can see the overall aesthetic and what GW was trying to go with. It's really, really cool.
Right.
So-
I mean, just to show how cool some of the weapons are, isn't there even some Imperial people that use like some of their void swords and things like that?
The Death Watch.
Yeah.
So, but I guess while we're talking about while we're talking about these really awesome weapons, the Praetorians have some pretty cool war gear. So let's talk about that. Necrodermis body. The Triarch Praetorians, like all Necrons, are encased in self-repairing bodies crafted from necrodermis, an indestructible metal substance. Their form is a reflection of their exalted status, who, with bodies forged to be sturdier and more durable than the average Necron, built to withstand the test of time and battle. They also have a gravity displacement pack. An ancient piece of Necrontyr technology, the gravity displacement pack allows the Triarch Praetorians to glide effortlessly across the battlefield, much like the Imperium's crew jump packs. These devices enable them to hover, though with a precision and lethality that far exceeds their counterparts. They got the Rod of the Covenant. This Rod of the Covenant is both a mark of office and a weapon of unparalleled potency. A staff-like device wielded by Praetorians, it cuts through armor with ease, surpassing even the most formidable power weapons in close combat. It can unleash short-range energy attacks capable of piercing through Terminator armor as if it were nothing, delivering destruction with contemptuous finality. And just like what Nick and I were gushing about earlier, the Void Blade and the Particle Caster. Some Triarch Praetorians opt for the deadly combination of Void Blade and Particle Caster, sacrificing the Rod of the Covenant's devastating firepower in favor of increased combat versatility. The Particle Caster, a particle pistol of terrifying reliability, fires streams of minuscule antimatter particles that explode on contact with any matter. Its only requirement is enough energy to maintain the containment field, preventing antimatter from destroying the weapon itself. The Void Blade, with its shimmering black edge, that flickers between dimensions, rends molecular bonds with each strike, disintegrating any foe unfortunate enough to be caught by it. So,
Man, if you ever go up against them in the tabletop, like some of the stuff that they wield is so annoying to try and go up against. One of the biggest things is the Necrodermis body, that living metal rule, where you destroy one and then on a certain roll they just come back.
Nothing is more frustrating playing somebody who's incredibly lucky and they just keep getting back up. Like, fuck, man. I've played many games where I've lost to those dice rolls where you think you cleared them off the objective and then they just come back and I'm like, yeah.
I've heard people complain about salty Necron players and that they lost all these units or whatnot, but it's just like, oh yeah, what other faction has reanimation protocols that just come right back up?
I mean, I'm a guard player through and through, and I'll field like 250 guardsmen on the table, but you go up against a couple of Necron and you end up getting bodied.
Yeah. You have a different type of like reanimation protocol, though. It just takes like 18 years to get them into the field as you reproduce more. humans, because there is an endless wave of humans that you can throw.
Oh, see, in my regiment,
Absolutely.
there's a 10-year-old cutoff. So once you reach the age of 10, I'll throw a las rifle into your
Nice.
hands and send you. It's so
Perfect.
it's like the squat ideal where if you're a little bit shorter, the blaster bolts go over the top of your head.
I like that. I don't know if you're joking with your lore that you just shared there, but if you actually have lore written down, I would love to share your guys' lore on Lorehammer main, as opposed to like listener lore. Just since you guys are lore masters now, I feel like let's get to know who you guys are on tabletop.
Well, I don't know
Yeah,
about
yeah, for sure.
tabletop, but I got to actually finish writing my lore. So
We have shared quite a few different stories you shared, Gerald. Like you've been working on Imperial Knights, and we shared that in listener lores. But like, I want to hear your prime lore. You know, we want to hear it. We need to hear it in a bonus episode.
are you sure you want to hear it? Oh, hold on, let me get the right eyes. Are you sure you want to hear about more Primaris Marines, Mark? Because that's you.
Oh yes, yes,
It's-
I know. I have one of your armies, actually, a model from your army.
That's the catch-22. You learn about Primaris Marines, but you're one of them. So
God damn.
And
Of
I
all
was
the
telling
ways to do me
everyone,
dirty.
right. And I was telling everyone in the Discord with the whole gangs on our Bites thing that we're doing the contest right now. Speaking of which, if you want to read some amazing lore, go and check that out. Some of the stories that people have come up with are top tier. Very difficult to choose who to vote for as we were going through that. But I was telling everyone as we're coming up against like I wrote a section on the Arbites, and for every gang that I wiped out, I'm gonna write like a little, maybe 1,000, 1,500 word blurb about how they took them down, and see about getting that out to you guys.
Nice.
All right. Let's go into some of the other Triarch people here. So we've got some Triarch Stalkers. Triarch Stalkers are a form of hexapedal combat walker utilized by Necron Triarch Praetorians in battle. Like an enormous mechanical spider, a Triarch Stalker looms over the battlefield with its multiple slicing limbs and devastating weaponry. Triarch Stalkers are often piloted by a high-ranking Triarch Praetorian and are the primary employed against any enemy heavy armor and to provide close fire support to the other Necrons. While the Triarch Stalker can mount a wide array of anti-infantry and anti-armor weaponry, it is the most common employed as the dedicated tank hunter that roams far ahead of the main army. With the Triarch Stalker advances, it does so with a speed and surety that belies its jerking gait. Indeed, it can cover all manners of terrain with a deftness and precision seldomly found on the walkers of less advanced races. Able to navigate dense jungles and mountainous terrain as swiftly and surefooted as open plains, Triarch Stalkers can easily outmaneuver more cumbersome tracked vehicles. The better to unleash their withering firepower against the thinner armor presented by the target's flanks and rears. As such attacks are much more effective and the enemy is taken unaware, Triarch Stalkers rarely indulge in sustained fusillades. Instead, they prefer to employ hit-and-run tactics, launching one or two salvos of fire and then skidding away onto the shadows before the enemy can react to their threat. On those occasions when a Triarch Stalker is deployed into the heart of Necron battle lines, its main focus is to provide close fire support, and it's typically equipped with a heat ray, a multi-purpose fusion weapon. If an enemy tank stalls the main Necron attack, one focus blast from the Triarch Stalker heat ray is sufficient to end the threat. Similarly, if dug-in enemy infantry is hampering the Necron advance, a Triarch Stalker can break the deadlock. The pilot simply sets the heat ray to disperse beam and sends clouds of scorching plasma swirling in every crevice to boil the enemy alive. That sounds so pleasant. Of all the ways I want to die in the 40k universe, being boiled alive by a dispersion beam and a heat ray, it's up there.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be
And the Necron are
right below being an arcoflagellant.
Yeah, the Necron are all joking, like we joke about lobsters. Oh yeah, they're screaming, but that's just them releasing air. They don't actually feel pain. He's fine.
Should the Triarch Stalker's firepower prove insufficient for the task at hand, it can instruct nearby Necron phalanxes to add their firepower to its own, and even transmit targeting data to ensure their augmentative volleys are as accurate as possible. Only the toughest and bravest of the foes can withstand such a barrage. Others are driven screaming from the battlefield or mowed down by pinpoint salvos. Such a difference does a Triarch Stalker's presence make that the habitual foes of the Necron have learned to prioritize its destruction. To guard against this, each Triarch Stalker is protected by layered Quantanium shielding. Though a determined assault can still breach these potent energy fields, it normally buys the Triarch Stalker enough time to withdraw. With their durability thus enhanced, Triarch Stalkers are increasingly deployed at the head of the vanguard forces to bear the brunt of the enemy's counterattack until the main body of the Necron army reaches the battle zone. They are as much of a symbol as the Triarch's power as they are deadly war machines in battle.
Yeah, very cool. They're another very cool, unique looking walker spider-like construct. We showed the Seraptic heavy construct, that crab prairie mantis spider piece, but this is another one of those kind of cool walking on pincers. You always wonder, like, okay, what kind of technology do they have that these pincers don't pierce through all the sand that they always seem to be walking on and to get stuck, all that weight and pressure on such a fine point, but somehow they manage. I like it. They're cool.
It's like trying to walk in high heels through like a swamp. Not that
exactly.
I've ever done that, but,
as we all know, that's a pain in the dick.
Imagine walking on thin ice with shoes made of eggshells.
Huh, okay, yes. That's another good one. Yeah.
But yeah,
all
I
right.
mean, we've gone through so much, and the amount of forces that Szarekh can come to bear, it's pretty cool. And as we were saying too, not all of the dynasties have awoken yet. So what else do the Necron have in store for us?
Yeah,
Yeah,
their
for
greatest
sure.
weakness is just like the Imperium itself, because there's so much infighting.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we learned a heck of a lot. We went on some crazy fucking tangents, but let's go on a few more together. We're reaching the call-in portion of the show, and we got some questions. So I'm gonna pull up. Let's start with Purge first. Get you a second to get ready. And hey, Purge, welcome to the show. Yeah, he might.
It does
not be
appear
ready.
that you're muted. There is a mute button.
There we
just
go.
at the
Let's
bottom.
try that. Does that work a little better?
Perfect.
Yeah.
There we go. We can hear you.
So you got questions? I might
Yeah, we
have
got
answers
questions.
you're not gonna like.
Well, first off, are you?
Who is your
Necron fan?
daddy, and what does he do?
Who's my daddy and what does he do? True story. I'm actually a third generation Marine. So my dad was a Marine, my grandpa was a Marine, and I was.
And
a Marine.
hopefully, in the year 40,000, your great grandson will be in the Marines fighting Necron.
Semper
I
Fi.
got to keep on that
There we
family
go.
legacy.
Yeah, Semper Fi.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your
No problem.
service.
Yeah, so the first question we got here is, can the shards of the Satan ever regain their full power, or are they forever bound to the Necron's will?
Well, that's like a double-sided question. Like, as long as the Necrons control them, then no. But if the Necrons, for whatever reason, would lose power over them, then there should be no reason why they wouldn't be able to gain their full power again. I think that's more dependent
Sure.
on the Necrons themselves as opposed to the shards.
And if they're willing to give that up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Szarekh, he did give up the command codes, but giving up the command codes to free your own people from a fate that you caused is very different than freeing the Necron who fucked your race over. I don't think
Or it's
he's
like-
going to be the guy to do it.
It's like having a nuclear arsenal. Are you going to just be like, you know what? I don't need nukes anymore. Well, everyone else got nukes.
Yeah. But nowadays we just got motherfucking space lasers and shit. So like, I feel like nukes are like 100-year-old outdated tech. Who knows what kind of cool and absurd weapons we have nowadays?
Well, that Rod of God, where they shoot that giant titanium spike from outer space.
Fuck yeah.
Love that weapon.
Oh, the tungsten rod. Yeah.
Mhm.
What was it? It was like the second G.I. Joe movie that they showed that used in.
I actually saw a good
Yeah, very cool.
But
anime on that where like it got bacteria on it and then they shot it into the earth and it caused like the whole earth to like become like this completely divergent like biosphere.
Oh, interesting. Huh. The bacteria wouldn't have been burnt off when it got shot through
It's
the
anime.
atmosphere.
It's just like Warhammer. Like there's
Oh.
you know there's
It's
loopholes, but it's
make-believe. It's
fine.
for fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if they're ever going to get free. You know, I don't think they have the ability to at this point. And you know, we only have seen there's just the tip of the Necron power, and they seem to be well contained, the Necron at this point. But
And well, you
Just
brought
the
up
tip.
like the worlds between the galaxy. Like there could be thousands and thousands of worlds with just these tombs waiting to be woken up. If they're like, oh, push the button, now we got 1,000 more tomb worlds we're bringing into the galaxy.
oof. Yeah. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like I like
I
it,
mean-
but I don't like it.
Yeah. But as long as the Necrons have their shit together, so to speak, like, yeah. There, I think in the Infinite and Divine, there was like almost the risk of like a shard of the Deceiver being let loose, but it got contained. So
Yeah.
just
And like I
yeah.
said, it's a weapon. Why would they give up a weapon if they don't have to? And it's who's gonna force them into doing it? Like, oh, you need to give up all these shards because we want you to make nice with us. Like, they're not gonna do that.
Yeah. All right. Pretty definitive answer. Let's jump to the next question. Despite their technological prowess, do the Necron truly understand the warp, or do they kind of just ignore it?
They probably understand it while ignoring it. Like, what's the warp have to offer to them? Like, there's no benefit of the warp to them.
Yeah, like I
Like,
guess isn't that the concept? Like it seems like even with the people that they conquer, it's like the benefit that they get is the worship, is the praise, is the domination. It's like everything that they have, everything that they Necron do has to have this element of what are we getting? Can we dominate it and use it for our purposes? And it just seems like, yeah, the Necron don't really have any purpose for the warp yet.
Yeah, they wouldn't gain anything out of it. And then you're talking with all the chaos gods, like, and all the mutations and stuff that's going on. Like, why would they want humans that are mutated beyond any sound? Like, in the warp, you lose like complete control of your mind. It's like utter insanity. Why would they want humans serving them that like can't even serve themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they've got to have some sort of understanding of the warp, even if they don't have souls that, you know, can go to the warp after they die and everything. Because isn't in the Pariah Nexus, they're harnessing the Blackstone pylons, and that's what's creating like this bubble to hold the warp back in that sector of space.
Like I said, I think they understand it. They just don't have a use for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
If they had a use for it, then yeah, they'd probably be doing anything and everything they could to get into the warp and start acquiring assets. But there's no assets for them to acquire that's worth anything they want to do with.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, next question, I suppose.
Yep.
Could there ever be an alliance between the Necron and the Dark Mechanicum, given their shared technological obsession?
That's going back to the warp though, because the Dark Mechanicon are part of like the whole like the warp essence. I would see it more with the Adeptus Mechanicon if they're willing to get past their dogma when it comes to technology.
Isn't that an interesting point? Because a lot of the Dark Mechanicum stuff is just so warp infused, where it's like, what is this? Like our technology is magic, the Necron says, but the Dark Mechanicum is like, yeah, ours is also magic, like, but very different.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also depends on like the sect of Dark Mechanicum, because there are pockets of them that don't necessarily follow chaos or the warp. They're just all about tech heresy. So you could have something like that. And then, of course, just like there's different sects of the Mechanicus that are a little bit more lenient towards especially studying xenotechnology, but that's a lot more rare because of what Purge mentioned before about they got that such a dogma about anything that isn't human made is an abomination. And Necrons definitely fall into that despite their advanced technology.
Like if the Imperium ever fell, like as a society, I could see humans easily start embracing like Necrons as their overlords to replace the Imperium. But then you're kind of destroying the whole 40 core or 40k lore in the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I guess that kind of leads me into a question for you guys. Would you guys ever like to see the Necron and the Imperium kind of teaming up more? I know in the what is it, the Word of the Silent King, the Blood Angels and some of the Necron team up to take out some Tyranids.
Or like in the Ghoul Stars, or in the Dark Empire, or the Dark Imperium. Like I could see that happening, like not fully, but you could make a story out of it where like this human planet's trying to, get a hold of the Imperium, and instead they get a hold of Necrons, and it's like, well, we have to rely
you're
on you to
telling me
protect us.
that no Mechanicum are like, wait, you have a Satan called the Void Dragon, and we worship the Void Dragon on Mars? Like, and they make that connection. Yeah, like there has to be some out there that think that, some Mechanicus. And then I think the big question would be like, where do the Mechanicum fall in the Necrons kind of hierarchy? Do they become another slave class that worships them, or are they used more of like a warrior class or something? Like, what, they wouldn't be equal, I would imagine, but maybe even the Admech wouldn't want to be equal because they worship the machine anyways.
I would see them as a slave class, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily like in chains and whips. Like they could, enjoy certain liberties that the rest of the slaves
slaves,
wouldn't
as they
get.
say.
Yeah, I was going to use that term, but like, do we go there? Do we not go there?
Yeah, Trevor Buzak could say whatever he wants, and Lord Hammerlaw Lords will have his back. So
I was gonna say it's just a matter of time before we say something on an episode and we get officially canceled.
I mean, there's always other ways to stream if you get canceled on YouTube.
Cool. Any other thoughts on this little question, this little tangent?
Well, like I said, I just think it would make for an interesting story having the Necrons working with humans, but just with the way that the Imperium is, I don't see it happening except for like a very niche case. And like that would make for a good story, but it'd be very niche. It wouldn't be like, oh, now all the Imperium's working with Necrons. It'd be like, no, this one planet had to rely on working with Necrons, but it'd be like a one-off.
Well, case in point too, you got part of the Fall Acadia. Trazen showed up, released a bunch of his museum pieces, as we'll put it, and kind of had a very brief but teeth gritted like agreement with Call to try and activate the Necron pylons before Abaddon did his thing and blew the whole thing up. So,
and that's the only place I could really see it's Call. Or because Call's the only one that's really in the Imperium that's like, you know what, like this is all dogma. Let's go back to actually advancing humanity. And everyone else was like, nope, you can't say that.
Well, now he still views Trazen as like an abomination that needs to be purged because Xenos and all that stuff. But still, circumstances were quite dire at that time.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
What were we going to say, Nick?
Oh, I was just commenting on about Trazen helping push the Eye of Terror back, but it all good.
Oh, okay.
Cool. All right, Purge, that was cool. Any closing thought before we get the next call in?
I just like the thought of the Necrons with if you ever watch Ghost in the Shell, like it makes you kind of try to address that philosophical, like even without a soul, are they still, is there something in there, like some spark of life or something like that? Like even if it's just coding, like can coding make a soul? Like it's just the philosophical aspects of that part of it.
Yeah, and something that we're gonna have to kind of come to conclusions in our lifetime, even.
I'll counter that question with another question. If you've ever played Mass Effect, and if you remember the Geth character called Legion, he asked that very same question: does this unit have a soul?
Yeah, and like I said, that's what I like about the whole Necron is Like, what do we define as a soul? And arguably, if we make intelligence or artificial intelligence advanced enough, will that give birth to a soul within that AI?
Yeah.
Things to
Like,
consider.
there's simulation theory where people think that we are living in a simulation. And it's like, okay, if we're all just part of the simulation, I feel like we have souls still. So did that happen to us when this simulation was made? Even if we are just like NPCs in this and like Donald Trump's the main character running around. Yeah, it's a whole
that's
thing,
a
man.
whole tangent.
The
I mean,
Orange
you can go
Emperor.
into
Oh Lord.
yeah, you can go
Oh,
into
Lord,
what
okay.
is the soul, and
Oh Lord.
yeah, there's so much.
Well, thanks for calling in, Purge. Always a pleasure. I'd love having you in the chat.
Yep. You guys have a
All
wonderful
right.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
He had some fucking squeaks going on as he walked in and out of doors. I love it. All right. Up next, we're calling Nemo Forever to the stage. Hey, welcome.
Mic check, can you hear me?
Oh, perfect.
I am a fan of what you lads do. If you ever find yourselves tired or in need of changing, please understand that biotransference is available to gentlemen such as yourself. A metal body can be made at your convenience.
Do tell more.
I want to do the servitor route where you guys just hook me up into a computer and I just live stream 24/7. But yeah, maybe that necrodermis will keep me going for centuries to come and not just till my body decays and crumbles out from under me. So
Now,
appreciate the offer.
if you're concerned in that process about your soul, you need to remind the audience that with the imperial tithe, that Marcus gets your soul. But if you don't, I get your soul, and I promise you rather the devil you know.
Full disclosure, the Imperial ties does not actually dictate that I get your soul. Lorehammer Legal makes me say that. It is only $2.50 a month. And I do not get your soul. But I like the concept for sure.
I am already legally claimed by the Omnissiah, so
In all real and really shitty times for myself, you guys were pretty great. So yeah, it's good to be around.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you
happy
for
to have you on
coming
the show.
Yeah.
We got a question. We'll carry on. Is there any hope for peace and cooperation between the Eldari and the Necrons, or is it only eternal conflict? Like, do the Eldar 60 million years later even care about the Necron the same way that the Necron freshly waking up and being like, "Fuck the Eldar"?
Do we mean this in a macro sense, where you have major political leaders taking the forefront and making grand decisions that affect diplomacy? Or do you mean this in the micro sense, where individuals who have some leadership capability in the moment are allowed to make moment-to-moment decisions? Like, what happens to that crashed Necron ship that is archaeotech to lesser races? Or that specific Eldar artifact, which contains about 500 Eldar souls, which isn't worth much, but it's worth something to the knife ears.
Yeah. I suppose there is like, on that. We'll start with not the macro, but the minor or whatever you called it. Would most Eldar even really be aware of the Necron? Like, yeah, they might have heard stories and stuff, but it's so long in the past. And like, did they really go to Necron school where they learned all about the Necron and all the varying ways? Or do they just kind of have the bigger understanding of, yeah, we fought the Necron 60 million years ago, but the bigger problem at hand is Slaanesh. So let's focus on that, and maybe like even on that minor sense, are they even aware that the Necron are coming back? Like, this is a recently new development. So they're still kind of even just adapting to the idea of them coming back.
In the major sense, the Necrontyr are no longer hard-coded to the orders of the Silent King through command protocols, but in the minor sense, their culture very much is, where your autonomy is pretty much determined by the complexity of your soul at time of biotransference. Now, according to the soft aspects of the lore, which is opposite of the crunch, it was pretty much determined by your social station. And if you're going by that, and with all the qualms I have of that, just quick disclaimer, then again, it determines on the level of the person you're interacting with. Because the Eldar are happy to further the Eldar race, but they're willing to be underhanded while doing it. And if that means making a quick cut dry deal with the Necrontyr Necrons, the Necrons are who they fought in the War in Heaven. They'll be willing to do that so long as the terms aren't too high. And the Necrons are happy so long as the illustrious empire is not tainted by the lesser light of lesser races.
Yeah.
Uh,
I gotta say, man, I feel like you're reading off a script the way you talk and how like smart you sound. I love it, man. You're very kind of insightful and getting my mind racing. Like,
right
holy
when you're
fuck.
saying that, I'm cracking another drink. I promise you, I'm between 6 to 7 in. The intelligence is
You're letting the liquor do the thinking for you. I like that.
Glorious.
You're
I'm
being-
telling you, we got to do a drunk hammer one of these times.
Yeah.
I'll be there
cheers.
for that.
This is a cause I thoroughly believe in.
My wonderful tech priest friend, if you can IV drip both the lore and the booze into my veins simultaneously, then truly you behoove yourself a believer.
I will do my best for the Omnissiah.
Well, if the IV drip is a pair of headphones and then you can have a liquid IV into your stomach, then yeah, we can definitely hook you up there.
Magnifico.
Very cool. Yeah, that's some great answers to that question. We could jump to the next one, I suppose, unless any of the other boys have a comment on it.
No, yeah. I mean, I've got a question here for you if you want to answer it, Nemo. If the Necrons were ever to fully reunite, do you think internal strife would erupt, or do you think they'd kind of fall in line and work with Szarekh further to, push his goals?
On the wider level, there's a blend for the Necrontyr between culture and religion, because their desire to escape the tumor-riddled emanations of their home planet, it was a racial dream, a collective dream, a cultural dream. It was not just the will of the Silent King, because the Silent King is who he is because he didn't say a damn thing, but still got what he wanted done by the force of his personality and his court, but more specifically, the loyalty of the wider people to him. So when you have, oh fuck, can you say the question again, please?
The alcohol's kicking in. It's just if the Necrons would ever fully reunite, or do you think internal strife will end up making that almost impossible? Do you think there's any possibility that they'll, team up under Szarekh?
All the nonsense I just said, plus as preamble, but the answer to that is Necrontyr is messy in the same way that British politics are messy. They'll get together, but a lot of people are getting shanked in the process.
It's like a parliament where everyone's just screaming at each other, but then somehow decisions are made,
Yeah.
But somehow,
And they're all wearing fancy headdresses and hair pieces.
Yeah.
But Parliament is so bad, the Eldar call them Monkey, and maybe we're at that level.
Yeah. No, that's if the Silent King coming back can't unite them, what really could? And it's already proven that the Silent King doesn't have the full favor of everyone there.
Oh no, but imagine trying to unite the Robo Boys under anybody except the Silent King. That's my challenge.
I mean, isn't that what Imhotep is trying to do?
He
Yeah.
can try, but he's pissed off too many people in the process of trying to do it. Not because he's good, not because he's bad, but because, well, they're Necrons.
Mm-hmm. They're just so
Necron's
petty.
been a Necron. Yeah.
They're so petty, but it's so great.
If you're familiar with ancient Egyptian history or dynastic history of any ancient human culture, if you're not stabbing someone in the gut, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I listened to this one podcast recently before I go to bed, and it's just about Chinese history, and that's basically the outcome of every dynasty, where it's like, well, this concubine wanted her son in charge instead of this concubine's son, so they end up murdering all the concubines and their children just so this concubine's son can rule now.
That's an underrated answer, because the Necrontyr also had concubines in that same sense, and if a concubine was clever enough, they could have social leverage, which is huge in Necrontyr political capital, and that's the basis of the modern day Necron. If not immediately, then at least some parts removed, and they are hungry for any memory of the flesh times.
Mm-hmm.
I
They
don't
call-
like where this is going. We're talking now Necron dildos here.
Oh,
They
hell,
vibrate, dude.
I wish I was joking. That's what they call it. No, since we are now joking, shall we now go to baddragon.com?
Oh
No, we
man.
are not responsible
we-
for what you find on the internet.
I'm just saying that all the
Oh.
warp gods are part of my Patreon, so if you subscribe to the Patreon of this channel, at least your soul is saved.
Yeah. Dude, Nemo forever. You've been a classic call-in, honestly. I think I need to get you on a main episode, so definitely DM me and we'll hook something up because holy fuck, I want to hear you rant some more.
In the name of the
Great.
God Emperor, what have I got myself into?
Fun and chaos.
The best kind.
Cool. Well, thank you for calling in. We got one more person we try to get to. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I say cheers, lads, and if ever you change, please remember that biotransference is always an option.
I'm strongly considering it. Thank you, sir.
Perfect.
Before we go get the next call in, I just want to make a statement. Do not let this tech priest get up fool any of you. I am a Necron fanboy at heart, so make of that what you will.
Yeah, we don't know what's under that robe technically. For all we know, it is Necron underneath there.
And now I'm telling you that it is Henry Cavill doing this weird American accent under there. And you know, maybe once we hit like 5,000 people on a Discord or something like that, then you know, mask comes off.
Face reveal.
So we talked about Henry Cavill being on the show. Plot twist: he's been on it the entire time.
Dun dun dun. But until we get Henry Cavill, we're gonna have to settle for Jax. Hey Jax, welcome.
You're muted, Jack.
Oh, sorry, gotta go through. Oh boy, just woke up from a 60,000 year nap. I'm being told to go down and chat. Anyway,
Yeah, what are your overall thoughts on this episode so far?
honestly, Silent King is pretty cool. Says the name. Yeah, I guess it's crazy. Necron are just like the craziest faction in 40k, pretty much.
Yeah, just whether it's technologically or their span of their time frame or every aspect you look at, it's just this whole fucking thing that none of the other races have, and they have it all.
Yeah, like when I remember when you guys brought up the big red button next to the Silent King's throne, where they just like push in all the Necron wake
Yep.
up,
And everyone wakes up. Yeah.
you forgot that device where it's like they like grab like this whole galactic map and they just like grab a star and it blows up.
The celestial orrery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing's so cool. We talked about it in the last episode and just kind of the limitations and a bunch of different things. And they have another thing, I forget what it was called. They have something very similar that can actually create stars and like galaxies and shit. Like they have just wild tech, man. Let's jump to
It's pretty awesome.
the question. I think you get the best one of them all. What lies beyond the known galaxy? Could any ancient alien races be lurking out there, waiting to invade? Or just like, we talk so much about Szarekh going and claiming different planets. Like, what are your thoughts? Do you ever hope we see more of this?
Oh, hold on.
Okay. That's you bounced. What do you boys think?
Oh, sorry about that, everybody. Technical difficulties. Oh yeah, go ahead. What were you guys thinking?
No. What's your answer? Like, do you want to see more of the kind of expanded galaxy outside? Like, do you hope that we see some maybe have Tau have alien auxiliaries? Do we hope that we see some extra galactic Necron auxiliaries?
Well, I remember in an early episode, you guys were talking about this exact same thing. Well, what's outside the galaxy? And while that's all cool, alien auxiliaries, Necron stuff, billions upon billions of Necrons just holding off the Tyranids wave by wave. in one of your earlier episodes, you guys mentioned something about this whole like galactic thing where Imperials have gone out and none have come back. Aliens have dared adventure to go where no man's gone before. And even astropaths, they look out to the wide galaxy and they only hear one thing. Wog.
Yeah. 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 That's all Szarekh's been doing, just been battling orc empires, just one after another out in the void.
I personally believe the Krorks survived, and they went out in the galaxy, and now they're fighting the Tyranids wave by wave. Silent King saw this. He took one look at that, and he just like shook his head, and like, we're so screwed if they ever stop fighting.
Yeah.
So you're talking like Octarius War 2.0.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, yeah, like probably like Tyranids, they were like going to a different dimension until a certain battle in the Horus Heresy, and then they like turned to our galaxy. But yeah, honestly, there's probably like infinite, like it's probably like just a multiverse, like that scale of where it's like billions of like different galaxies all over the place with like millions of different aliens and Xenos, only to be purged by the glorious God Emperor. Oh.
Yeah, it really just makes it infinite almost, for sure, which can be good, also can be bad, but
that brings up an interesting question though, because like Mark, we talked about Szarekh noticing the rift happening. The Tyranids noticed the Pharos device going off that kind of created that little blip in the Astronomicon that drew them in. I wonder if Szarekh saw that too, and if he did, did he not think of it as a high enough priority to investigate? So just something to consider.
Yeah, like that is a Necron relic of a time bygone, and maybe he did take notice of it, but it took 10,000 years for him to kind of get back.
Very possible. And but didn't that blip? It was kind of like a warp blip, right? And the Tyranids have a presence in the warp, the shadow and the warp, while the Necron don't necessarily. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. My thoughts are that I love the Tyranids because they're in or extra galactic presence. You know, that's kind of what makes them so unique. I don't know if I necessarily want like another faction coming in from outside the universe.
Yeah, I think I'd lean with you on that too. Yeah. And the final question we have is, what kind of Necron Pharaon would rise if the Silent King were to vanish or be killed?
Does Gerald want to go first, or
no? Go for it, dude.
Yeah, because this is gonna be a long one, but I have this thing pulled up in the Necron Codex. It's crazy. It's like it's pure Silent King propaganda, but basically a really like weird part that kind of correlates with the question is well, let me pull it up. Blah blah blah. This dynasty is attacking or rebels against the Silent King. The Remafat dynasty claim to love the people and hate only the Silent King, but the Silent King is the code, and the code is the people. And so, kind of basing it off of that, everyone. Yeah. Have you ever seen the Walking Dead?
Yeah,
where it's like Negan's like whole thing where everybody's like, "I am Negan."
Yeah.
Conspiracy theory, but what if that's literally the Silent King? Where it's like, I am the code, you are all me. And then that one Necron in the back is like, I am Alfarius.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, that is interesting. So like if the Silent King was destroyed, like would all Necron kind of just cease their coding kind of just cease to function, you know?
Well, you know, like Trajan's whole thing where he can like morph bodies after each like body dies. Like if his original body's dead, he can like upload his code into another body, and then that body dies, he uploads his code into another body. And so this like persona of Trajan always survives. I'm imagining like on tabletop, right? Like you gun down you gun down the Silent King. Like a bunch of Imperial Guardsmen just like, yeah, we did it. We killed the Silent King. And like for sure they kill him. Like they point like all their Bane blades at him and get him down. And he comes back later. Honestly, like, what if that's like a different Necron entirely? Like, but he just uploads his code into another one. Like he dies, and he's like, oh, whoops.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Trajan can do that, and he's just like a simple lord or overlord in his dynasty, then I mean, what's to say that the Silent King over all of the Necron can't do that?
Yeah, exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense. It's lorically sound.
Yeah. Crazy thought. That's a very cool line you found there. I like it. Yeah.
That'd be a crazy way to like. Oh.
Yeah, no, carry on.
I was about to say that'd be a crazy way to end like a N40K though. Like the Necrons have won everything. Like everything's looking grim for the Imperium, and like the Emperor gets off his throne and fights the Silent King. He loses, of course, because the Silent King is the best. All hail the Silent King. And or like the Emperor beats him somehow, and like he kills the Silent King. Everything's looking better for the Imperium, and like another person like turns into the Silent King, and it's like the Silent King's like, aha, you fool, you forgot I am the Necron or something. Sorry, that's my own fanfic.
Yeah, very interesting. I like it. Huh. Well, isn't that some thoughts that we can all go to sleep with now?
Glorious.
Yeah. Quick closing thought, Jax. We're out of questions, so.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, if you were a Necron, would you follow the Silent King?
Ooh, great question. I don't think I would. You know, I typically am a rebel. You know, I say fuck Canada and flee the country. I would come up with my own Panamanian chicken farmer Necron dynasty for sure.
Yeah. Well, then of course Nero and
Well, first of all, one, I would follow the Silent King because I'm going to pull 1,000 Suns player and say the Silent King did the best he could with what he had on hand. So he made the best decision he possibly could for the time. And also, I would not join the Silent King as a janitor. Jax. This is how the lore helper. This is how the lore helper heresy is going to get started.
That's funny.
Geralt, don't trust anyone named Erebus for the next few years, okay?
Nick, would you want to join the Silent King?
No, he had his time. I say put someone else in charge.
Nice. That is shot. Cool. All right. Well, that's fun. That's thanks, Jax, for calling in. Appreciate your feedback and all that. Adios. Whoa, what an episode. Okay, let's wrap it up real quick here. What a crazy episode. That was a lot of fun, guys. We had a lot of crazy tangents, a lot of crazy thought-provoking things. Like, my mind is racing, but I got to go to bed. I want to see my baby as well. So let's talk Lorehammer listener lore. If you like listening to 40K stuff and you like all these crazy homebrew ideas, because people are so creative, they come up with all types of fun stuff. Even Jax was just saying a little bit about his headcanon. He maybe needs to write that down and submit it to Lorehammer Listener Lore podcast. Almost 200 episodes out. Been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. And when you're done hearing about sci-fi or fantasy with a sci-fi coat of paint, then, well, come on over to the Grimlore podcast where Rayway and I talk about Warhammer fantasy and then sometimes other grim and or dark topics. So a lot of fun. We do a lot of role playing type of things intermixed with our lore dumps. So there you go.
Very cool.
And while those guys,
Well, and Nick died again.
That's so funny. Just when he was going to shout out himself. I'll shout out. He does Black Fox Miniatures on Instagram. Go check out his stuff. He's mostly just wants to talk to people. He's lonely like I was back in the day. So send him some love. Send him some love. I just told him to go check out your Instagram. You're back for all those who's not watching the stream. But I said you're
Nero
lonely.
lives.
Follow me on Instagram. We talk about painting, talk about lore. I'm also active in the Discord, so come check us out in there.
Very cool. Okay, I got a couple shout outs and then we're done the show, I promise. The first one is a birthday shout out. Somebody on the Discord while we're recording said, "Can you please shout me out? It's my birthday. And all I want for my birthday is to be shouted out on Warhammer." So, Seth, thank you so much for listening to the show and happy birthday, homeboy. I hope you have a great year and a future, and we'll pray for your soul that it doesn't get lost to World War III. That's the goal this year. Okay, let's go to Patreon. We've been getting a lot of new people recently, but this time I decided to just shout out the top 5 most given Patreon members of all time. Last episode I did that longest lasting, but that's not necessarily the top 5. So these people have given the most money to Lorehammer ever. So we'll start with Snatch, and then we got UK Matt, my boy. Shout out to you. You're still holding that title somehow. Second place, pretty impressive, my man. Would love to get you on an episode at some point. Been a minute since we talked, but it's all good. Life goes on. We got Ashton, and we got Jacob, and we got Bobby G and the 3 Great Unclean One, which I know he was also one of the longest members. So seriously, thank you guys all so much. Like, some of you have given a lot of money, a disturbing amount of money, and we really appreciate it. And with that,
we really appreciate it. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, we say good night and adieu and farewell and adios.